Chapter 10:16. Following the departure of Deadale and Duri, Hyojin didn't wait for Itachi to announce the lineup. His figure flashed and arrived at the venue that was still filled with smoke. He pointed at Naruto, who was in Mai's resting area. The meaning of provocation was self-evident. Damn it! Naruto suddenly clenched his fists. Ningxi, who was on the side, put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. He did on purpose. Don't let anger get to your head. Okay. Naruto calmed his mind. Shikamaru walked over and said, "This Kirin's taijutsu and ninjutsu aren't inferior to Sasuke's. He's a first-class master in terms of understanding the battle situation and the human heart. So, remember, don't be affected by him. Don't let him lead you by the nose. Play to your own advantage." Sakura also walked over. "Naruto, you must take revenge for Sasuke." Naruto nodded heavily. Hinata gathered his courage and whispered, "Naruto, be careful." Okay. After responding, Naruto no longer hesitated and jumped into the arena. As both sides entered the arena, the four purple flame formation that separated the arena from the stands slowly rose. Taking advantage of the time that the four purple flame formation was slowly rising, Hyojin twisted his neck. "You seem to be more resistant to beatings than that kid from the Uchiha family. Don't talk about Sasuke like that." With just one sentence, Hyojin provoked Naruto to the point that he was full of anger. Under the mask, Hyojin frowned and thought, "Smelly brat, your emotional control is so bad." While thinking, Hyojin secretly used the breathing technique he had developed using Z Luo's 7 days breathing technique as a reference. In the battle with Sasuke, just now, it was because of the help of the lightning escape stimulation technique and this breathing technique that he was able to endure Sasuke's relentless attacks until Sasuke revealed an opening. As he inhaled and exhaled, more and more oxygen gathered in Hyojin's lungs. He felt his body instantly become much lighter. His heart, lungs, and other internal organs also became stronger. At this moment, the four violet flame formation had completely risen, isolating the battlefield from the spectator stands. Almost at the same time, Naruto quickly formed a seal and shouted, "Multiple shadows." Bam, bam, bam. Amidst the white smoke, hundreds of Naruto rushed out and pounced on Hyojin. "Try to use shadow clone technique to exhaust my stamina? That's a smart choice. But you might be mistaken about one thing. In front of me, numbers mean nothing." The corner of Hyojin's mouth curled up. Then, he swayed his body and charged forward, although he was surrounded by hundreds of shadow clones. As soon as Hyojin made his move, he immediately displayed the power of a tiger charging into a flock of sheep. He almost killed one of Naruto's shadow clones with one move. In Mai's resting area, Ningxi was shocked. Xiaoli was also dumbfounded. In their field of vision, they could only see Kuroto flashing around wantonly. And as he moved, the sound of shadow clones exploding could be heard all along the way. Guy shook his head and said, "Naruto and Kirin's physical skills are too different. I'm afraid it will be difficult to use shadow clones to exhaust him." The strength of the shadow clones was linked to the strength of the original body. If the physical skills of the original body were too different from the enemy, then it would be useless no matter how many shadow clones there were. Kakashi, who rushed back from my hospital, stared intently at the field, and a question arose in his heart. Why didn't he use ninjutsu to deal with Naruto's shadow clones? Kakashi knew very well that Kirin had mastered a variety of thunder-release ninjutsu, even his Chidori. Therefore, in the face of this situation, using ninjutsu to quickly wipe out Naruto's shadow clones, find out Naruto's real body, and then attack fiercely should be the most time-saving tactic. He shouldn't be entangled with Naruto's shadow clones like this. In the rock-hidden rest area, while paying attention to the battle, Heitu said to Deadale, who was resting with his eyes closed, with his arms crossed, "Come and take a look. The winner among them should be your final opponent." Deadale didn't move and said lazily, without Uchiha's kaleidoscope, "The next match is boring." Heitu asked curiously, "Why? Do you think it will win this time?" Deidara shrugged. "Isn't it obvious? In the field, Hyojin, who didn't use any ninjutsu, swept nearly 100 Naruto's shadow clones in a moment with his physical skills alone. Seeing that his shadow clones were getting fewer and fewer, Naruto's main body, who was hiding among them, quickly used multiple shadow clone technique to replenish the number of shadow clones. If having more people is useful, then why would I practice taijutsu? After chuckling, Hyojin fully launched the lightning release stimulation technique and breathing technique. With so many shadow clones of Naruto as live targets, he could take advantage of this rare opportunity to attack the lightning release chakra mode again. Whoosh! In an instant, Hyojin, who was already extremely fast, once again soared. His every movement even produced a sharp whistling sound like when Luo activated fifth activity. At the same time, his body also flashed with inconspicuous electric arcs. Not enough. Not enough. Although his body faintly felt a little unbearable, Hyojin didn't stop and continued to increase the stimulation of the lightning release stimulation technique. Bang, bang, bang. Under Hyojin's almost extreme state, in just a few short breaths, Naruto's shadow clones were smashed into pieces. The speed at which he used multiple shadow clone technique to replenish the shadow clones could not even keep up with the speed at which Hyojin cleared the shadow clones. Is his taijutsu too strong, or his mind too weak? Seeing that the shadow clones he created were not as fast as his opponent, Naruto was horrified. At this moment, he realized the pressure that Sasuke had faced before and understood why Sasuke still lost the competition even though he had awakened a Manjikyu Sharingan. And in such a moment of daze, he suddenly found that only his main body was left in the entire field. Swish! At this time, Hyojin rushed in front of Naruto's main body and grabbed Naruto's neck. Hey, is Mai's Jinchuriki only at this level? Naruto, who was grabbed by the neck, subconsciously activated Tailed Beast. In an instant, an orange-red tailed beast coat wrapped Naruto from the inside out, and a giant claw came out from it, grabbing at Hyojin fiercely. Hyojin deliberately let go of Naruto, dodged the giant claw, and immediately smiled. Let me see where your limit is. At this time, he was not only testing Naruto's limit, but also his own limit. He wanted to use the opportunity of fighting against Naruto, who had transformed into a tailed beast, to break through in one fell swoop and master the lightning release chakra mode. The third update is a little late. I'm very sorry. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1017. The moment he entered the tailed beast transformation, a majestic tailed beast chakra leaked out of Naruto's body. At the same time that Naruto was wrapped in the tailed beast coat, the giant chakra tails on the coat were also revealed. Roar! Then Naruto, who was crouching low, let out a beast-like roar. Raising his arm to block the air wave that was coming at him, Hyojin let out a soft cry of surprise. Compared to the battle with Luo in the morning, Naruto's emotions seemed to be more agitated at this time. The degree of his tailed beast transformation was also deeper, and his whole body exuded the aura of a beast. The sixth tail? Soon, a trace of seriousness appeared on Hyojin's face under the mask. This was because after Naruto revealed the fifth giant chakra tail, he did not stop there. Instead, in the surging nine tails chakra, he continued to extend the sixth giant chakra tail. One must know that the limit of Naruto's tailed beast transformation had always been 5 tails. Unexpectedly, when Naruto entered the tailed beast transformation this time, he even skipped the process of fighting and testing the waters. He directly broke through the limit and extended the sixth tail. Staring at Naruto's eyes that were sometimes rational and sometimes violent, Hyojin knew that revealing 6 giant chakra tails was still a little too much for the current Naruto. Has he reached the limit? But aren't limits meant to be broken through? After grinning and chuckling, Hyojin pounced forward. Naruto, who was in a semi-rational state, did not lose his sense of battle. After noticing that Hyojin was pouncing on him, he kicked with both his legs, and at the same time, a large part of the ground collapsed with a bang. At the same time, his whole body was wrapped in a whistling air wave like a cannonball as he faced Hyojin. Boom! The two of them covered the distance of dozens of meters in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, Hyojin, who was surrounded by electric arcs, collided with Naruto, who was wearing a tailed beast coat, and let out a deafening boom. Under the huge recoil, Hyojin's body couldn't help but be pushed back. It felt like an ordinary person bumping into a speeding train. Such great strength. Hyojin, who had adjusted his body in midair, suddenly had a cold look in his eyes. This was because from the corner of his eye, he noticed that although Naruto, who had transformed into a tailed beast, had also been knocked back by the impact, he had only been pushed back a few meters due to the deceleration caused by his six tails stabbing into the ground. Without waiting for Hyojin to land on the ground, Naruto, who had stabilized his body, ran over on all fours like a beast. At the same time, the six tails behind him quickly extended, like six iron whips, and fiercely lashed at Hyojin, who was in the air from different directions. Hyojin, who was in the air and had nowhere to borrow strength from, immediately formed a seal and created a thunder clone. Before the white smoke from the lightning clone dissipated, he decisively stepped on the lightning clone's body. Using the recoil, he quickly landed on the ground. Almost at the moment when he landed, Naruto's six giant chakra tails swept fiercely on the thunder clone in the air. Sizzle in an instant, the shattered thunder clone turned into a violent bolt of lightning and attacked Naruto along the six giant chakra tails. However, after this powerful bolt of lightning hit Naruto, other than making Naruto's body emit a cloud of green smoke, it didn't cause any damage to Naruto, who was wrapped in a tailed beast coat. It didn't even slow down or numb him. Rumble. After Naruto's six chakra tails were struck by the lightning, their power didn't decrease at all. Some of them hit the ground fiercely, some hit the ground, some hit the air, and some directly hit the four violet flame array that isolated the battlefield from the stands, causing the four violet flame array to shake and rumble. How is this possible? Staring at the shaking four purple flame formation, everyone in the enchantment class was stunned. One must know that even in the previous battle between Kirin and Sasuke, who had awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, the four purple flame array wasn't shaken in the slightest. Who would have thought that just an ordinary tail strike for Naruto would be able to shake the four purple flame array? The audience in the grandstand also exclaimed. The shaking four purple flame formation made them suddenly realize that the grandstand did not seem to be absolutely safe. And Orochimaru, who didn't find a chance to attack into my hospital, couldn't help but grin when he saw this scene. Nine Tails is worthy of being called Nine Tails. As one of the Sannin of Mai, Orochimaru has fought with many Jinchuriki, so he can clearly distinguish the difference in strength between Nine Tails' Jinchuriki and other Jinchuriki. Pharmacist Do said in his heart, I didn't expect Naruto's progress to be so fast as expected of your training. Orochimaru said casually, I didn't spend much energy on Naruto. Pharmacist Do flattered. You led him into the Ryuchi cave. That's already the greatest favor. Chuckling lightly, Orochimaru was a little puzzled. But this kid's progress is indeed a little beyond my expectations. It stands to reason that the Kyuubi shouldn't have given in so easily. Could it be that Yondaime left some arrangements before his death? VIP area. After the Kage saw the power of Naruto's tailed beast transformation, all of their faces were solemn. In the last battle, Naruto's performance against Ziluo was already amazing enough, but the Kage didn't expect that it wasn't Naruto's limit. It must be known that Naruto is only 12 or 13 years old. If he continues to develop at this momentum, then Naruto's future strength is simply immeasurable. Maybe he can even surpass the young genius Uchiha who awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan this morning. After realizing this, Sachikage, Lei Ying, and the Kazekage looked at each other. If it weren't for this Chunin exam, they really wouldn't have discovered that Mai's new generation is so strong. If Mai's Nine Tails' Jinchuriki and Uchiha's young genius all grow up, then Mai will undoubtedly return to the level when Naruto was still alive. In the field, looking back at the shaking four-purple flame formation, Hyojin grinned and said, "Finally, there's a little bit of resistance." The powerful strength shown by Naruto after the tailed beast transformation not only didn't make him feel frightened, but also excited, because only in the fierce confrontation and the selfless battle, the body's potential can be dug out. Phew! After a long breath, Hyojin smiled and said, "It's my turn." Swish before his voice died away. Suijin disappeared out of thin air, leaving only a few flashing electric arcs, proving that he had been here for a while. Bang, then, in a low muffled sound that made people's flesh hurt, Hyojin avoided all of Naruto's tails at a strange angle, and punched the tailed beast Naruto's face. Here's the first update. I'm asking for monthly tickets during the double event. Students who still have monthly tickets, please support me. Chapter 10:18. With a low muffled sound, Hyojin punched Naruto's face with all his might, instantly sending him flying. However, he had only flown less than 4 or 5 meters away when the 6 chakra giant tails of the tailed beast Naruto were nailed to the ground one by one, stopping Naruto's flying figure. Roar! Naruto, who had stabilized his body, directly used his tail to support his body in mid-air and let out an angry roar. Swoosh! At this time, Hyojin's figure flashed and once again approached Naruto at an almost ghostly speed. Naruto, who still retained a part of his consciousness, was taken aback and subconsciously wanted to swing his fist. Bang! Before Naruto could swing his fist, there was another muffled sound, and Hyojin once again punched Naruto's face. However, this time, Naruto was not sent flying. The 6 chakra giant tails that pierced the ground were like anchors that held his body in place. So Hyojin's punch only made him stagger. Seeing this, Hyojin frowned. Considering that the tailed beast Naruto had a thick layer of chakra coat to protect him, his skin was rough, and his flesh was thick, he did not hold back in his attack just now. It was his full strength under the thunder escape stimulation method and breathing technique. The first punch was still okay. It barely had the effect of sending him flying. However, he did not expect that the second punch with the same strength would only make the tailed beast Naruto stagger. Phew! After exhaling a breath of hot air, Naruto suddenly turned his head and glared at Hyojin fiercely. He immediately turned around and launched a counterattack, returning a heavy punch to Hyojin. Bang! With the same muffled sound, Kuroto was instantly knocked back, his feet dragging a long trail on the ground before he barely managed to stop his figure. Interesting. With a chuckle, Hyojin did not hesitate at all and pounced forward again. Bam, bam, bam. In the blink of an eye, Hyojin, who was surrounded by electric arcs, and Naruto, who had turned into a tailed beast, began the most primitive and brutal battle in the hall. Both sides exchanged blows, and for a moment, the entire venue was filled with the frightening sounds of fists hitting flesh, as well as the unbearable whistling of the wind. In the stands, is he still human? Monster. Both of them are monsters. Kirin actually chose to fight hand-to-hand with Jinchuriki? The audience was shocked and suspicious. Some of the audience members who were not in good health were even panicking from the low, deep thuds that sounded like they were being hit in the chest. At the VIP area, for generations of Kazekage couldn't help but ask, "What is Kirin doing?" The question raised by 4 generations of Kazekage was obviously the doubt in the hearts of several other Kage. Kirin was obviously a ninja with mist-release Kekiai Genkai, but he chose to fight hand-to-hand with Nine Tails' Jinchuriki. This was undoubtedly a very stupid tactical choice. 3 generations of Tsuchikage said lightly, "Maybe it's the pride of young people." Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, was also puzzled at the moment. Although he let Kirin fight against Naruto according to Kirin's request, he also didn't know that Kirin would choose this method to fight with Naruto. Does he want to train Naruto? But this method is a little too rough. Naruto is just an ordinary Jinchuriki. Can he withstand such a test? There is no doubt that Itachi, who only has Sasuke in his eyes, has not yet fully realized the potential of Naruto, nor has he put Naruto on the same level of importance as his younger brother. Among the several Kage, only Lei Ying of 4 generations of Kazekage had a solemn expression on his rugged face. Others may not be able to see anything, but as Lei Ying and the only ninja in the current shinobi world who has mastered Thunder Chakra mode, he immediately guessed Hyojin's intention. Because what Hyojin is doing now is almost exactly the same as what he did when he practiced Thunder Chakra mode. It's just that his sparring partner at that time was Lei Ying of Lei Ying, who taught him Thunder Chakra mode, while the current sparring partner of Hyojin is Nine Tails Jinchuriki. This Kirin wants to use Mai's Nine Tails Jinchuriki to break through his own limit. Lei Ying of 4 generations of Kazekage's eyes flashed, and his eyes were full of suspicion. Practicing Thunder Chakra mode does indeed require a strong sparring partner, because the probability of breaking through the physical limit in a fierce battle is far higher than the probability of breaking through the physical limit in ordinary training. At that time, he successfully mastered Thunder Chakra mode under the sparring partner of the powerful 3 generations Lei Ying. And judging from the current situation, the strength of Mai's Nine Tails Jinchuriki is indeed enough to be a sparring partner for practicing Thunder Chakra mode. But he doesn't have our cultivation scrolls or special recovery potions, and he wants to peek at our lightning release chakra mode? He must be crazy. From Hyojin's method of trying to learn the Thunder Chakra mode, 4 generations of Kazekage Lei Ying can conclude that the other party has not mastered the secret technique scroll of Thunder Chakra mode. But it is precisely because of this that Kuroto's attempt to pry into the lightning release chakra mode is very incomprehensible. How is this possible? This is impossible. In the view of 4 generations of Kazekage Lei Ying, this is simply impossible, because even if there are cultivation scrolls and special recovery elixirs, he is the only one who can master the Thunder Chakra mode. Even the Mist Release Ninja Druid, whose strength has reached the Kage level, is still a step behind. Kuroto doesn't believe that a person who hasn't even seen a cultivation scroll can figure out the lightning release chakra mode that was passed down from generation to generation in the Cloud Village. In the field, the fierce fight continued. Naruto, who is transformed into a tailed beast, has the advantage of 6 chakra giant tails, as if he has 6 more arms, while Hyojin has the advantage of speed, and his figure is unpredictable. In the fierce fight, the more Hyojin fought, the more excited he became. Many omissions that were not easy to notice during the practice were revealed one by one in the fierce battle. And the power of Naruto, after transforming into a tailed beast, made him no longer have any scruples, and he completely immersed himself in the battle. And the more he immersed himself in the battle, the more Hyojin, who has a special affinity with the Thunder Chakra mode, the more skillful he is. Yes, this is the feeling. Although the injuries on his body are getting more and more serious, and the consumption of chakra mode is getting more and more, but this kind of joy makes him immersed in it, simply unable to extricate himself. Like Hyojin, the tailed beast Naruto also grew rapidly in the fierce battle. Whether it is the adaptation of fighting style or the use of fighting skills, Naruto has shown great talent, growing and learning rapidly in the fierce battle. At first, Hyojin could still rely on his physical skills to have the absolute upper hand. But as Naruto became more and more accustomed to the tailed beast state, he became more and more skilled in the use of Chakra's giant tails and the tailed beast coat, and the balance of the battle gradually began to tilt. At this time, Naruto slammed his fists on the ground. Bang! In the tremor and loud noise, the gravel on the ground was shaken into the air. Then, Naruto flicked his tail, and the 6 chakra giant tails instantly turned into big hands, catching the gravel that was shaken into the air, and then threw it at Hyojin. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The small gravel was the size of a wash basin, and the big ones were even close to a meter in diameter. Under the throw of Chakra's giant tails, they were like cannonballs whistling through the air, flying toward Hyojin. At this time, Hyojin did not choose to dodge. Instead, he put his palms together and then suddenly pulled them apart, instantly releasing a large amount of purple lightning to meet the whistling gravel cannonballs. Boom, boom, boom. The purple lightning and the gravel collided in the air, causing a violent roar, and a sky full of smoke and dust. In the smoke and dust, Hyojin, whose body was aching unbearably, felt that he was only one step away from activating the lightning escape chakra mode. So he ignored the physical fatigue and once again launched a fierce attack on Naruto. Swoosh like a bolt of lightning, Hyojin passed through the smoke and directly arrived in front of Naruto, both of his fists punching out without holding back. Naruto, who was panting heavily, did not hesitate after sensing Hyojin's sudden attack. He directly stretched out both of his palms to meet Hyojin's fists. Crack! After the fists and palms collided, there was an instant sound of bones breaking. This sound of bones breaking was naturally not made by Hyojin, who was the attacker. However, because of the tailed beast coat, the bones were not the only support for Naruto's arms. So even if the bones of both his arms were broken, Naruto's hands still held on Hyojin's fists tightly, making it difficult for Hyojin to break free for a while. At this moment, among the 6 giant chakra tails behind Naruto, one in the middle turned into a palm and held it up, while the other 5 giant chakra tails surrounded the giant palm in the middle and kept releasing chakra. In an instant, a huge Rasengan appeared in front of Hyojin's eyes. When did this kid learn this trick? Hyojin's eyes suddenly turned cold. Naruto, who could always cause some accidents, was really shocked this time. At this moment, his fists were tightly held by Naruto's hands. He could not break free, nor could he form a seal. He could only watch the Rasengan made by the giant chakra tail gradually approaching him. In Mai's resting area. Phew, it's finally over. Looking at the appearance of the Rasengan, Kakashi breathed a long sigh of relief. The battle in front of him was too frightening, and even he, who was always worried that Naruto would lose control, faintly felt a little unbearable. Jiraiya held his forehead with his hand and said with emotion, "I didn't expect to fight to this point." Like Kakashi, he has been worried because the 2 people fighting in the field are too messy. Even Hyojin, who has always been in the upper hand, is covered with scars, let alone Naruto, who has been in a state of being beaten. It must be known that although the tailed beast chakra coat can provide a strong defense for the Jinchuriki, this defense is not unlimited. Otherwise, the 4 generations Mizukage and the 6-tailed Jinchuriki Utaka, who was captured by the Akatsuki organization not long ago, would not be defeated. The injuries on Naruto's body are actually much more serious than those of Hyojin. But first of all, he is covered by the tailed beast coat, so it can't be seen on the surface. Second, Naruto's Uzumaki's physique is strong enough to support him. But even so, after this battle, Naruto will probably be sent to my hospital by Kirin for a while, just like Sasuke. Tsunade shook her head and said, "Fortunately, that Kirin is too arrogant and conceited, and chose to use physical skills to fight the tailed beast Naruto. Otherwise, I am afraid the outcome will be difficult to predict." Yeah, Jiraiya and Kakashi nodded at the same time. However, Kirin's tactical choice is indeed a little difficult for them to understand. In the previous battle with Sasuke, Kirin used tactics to the extreme, provoking Sasuke all the way, causing Sasuke to finally lose control of his emotions. And in the unscrupulous squandering of his pupil power, he revealed a flaw, and then Kirin seized the opportunity to counterattack, completing an instant reversal. Such a ninja who uses tactics and the human heart to the extreme, it stands to reason that he would not make such a low-level mistake, but it happened just like that. In this battle, Kirin didn't even use ninjutsu, let alone mist release. Almost all the time, he used physical skills to fight with the tailed beast Naruto, which is incredible. In the ordinary stance, Orochimaru also narrowed his eyes at this time, and his calm face showed a little puzzlement. In the whole exam, whether it was Rock Village's Dead-Ale or Cloud Village's Druid, he didn't pay much attention to them. Even Naruto and Sasuke, he also looked down on them. Only this Kirin from the Mist Village made him a little puzzled. He instinctively felt that this Kirin from the Mist Village, like himself, participated in the Chunin exam for an impure purpose, and he always had an indescribable feeling, as if he knew this Kirin. Looking at Naruto condensing a Rasengan with the giant tail of chakra, and Kirin's arms were temporarily bound by Naruto. He couldn't help but grin. "Let me see your true face under the mask." In the field, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Naruto condensed a Rasengan with a diameter larger than a basketball with the giant tail of chakra. With the Rasengan wrapped in air waves and spinning rapidly under the support of Chakra's giant tail, looked extremely dazzling. At this moment, everyone in the venue held their breath, and Naruto didn't relax, nor did he hesitate. At the moment when the Rasengan was condensed, he suddenly stretched out the giant tail of chakra that was holding the Rasengan and smashed it fiercely towards Hyojin. Boom! The huge explosion almost overturned the entire venue. The four-purple flame formation that isolated the battlefield and the stands under the impact of the shock wave caused by the explosion shook violently for a while and could no longer bear the devastation and suddenly collapsed. Everyone in the ward formation class didn't restore the four-purple flame formation, but stared blankly at the field filled with smoke and dust. Not only the ward formation class, but everyone in the venue at this time. Their eyes were focused on the field, focused on the smoke and dust that filled the sky. At this time, the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, revealing two figures. One of them was Vortex Naruto, who had withdrawn from his tailed beast form, half kneeling on the ground with a tired face, and was covered in wounds. The other figure was Hyojin, who was covered in a layer of dazzling, lightning escape chakra, leisurely brushing away the dust. For the sake of the plot continuity, the second and third chapters have been updated consecutively, so it's a little late, I'm sorry. For the double event, I've really tried my best. There's not a single drop left. Please support me with your monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1019. In the VIP area. How is this possible? Looking at the lightning chakra mode that enveloped Kirin's body, for generations Lei Ying's face was extremely ugly. There is no doubt that the lightning chakra mode that currently enveloped Kirin's body is not the true lightning chakra mode. It can't even be regarded as a prototype. However, this state of lightning chakra mode is the most critical and difficult step to practice lightning chakra mode. And once this is achieved, mastering lightning chakra mode is only a matter of time. When 4 generations Lei Ying completed this step, it only took him less than half a year to completely master lightning chakra mode. Therefore, since Kirin has achieved this point, it means that he must decisively kill Kirin now. Otherwise, the secret of Kumo Village's lightning chakra mode will be leaked. Therefore, a murderous intent surged in 4 generations Lei Ying's heart, and the chakra mode on his body also became restless. The technique of changing the nature of the lightning chakra mode and the leak of the mist release Kekiai limit have already caused Lei Ying to feel very annoyed and uneasy. Now, even the lightning chakra mode is about to be leaked. It can be said that the means that Kumo Village relied on to challenge Mai and become the head of the 5 great shinobi villages has almost all been leaked. As if sensing something, 3 generations Tsuchikage floated from his seat and said, "Hee, it seems that there will be one more ninja who has mastered lightning chakra mode in the shinobi world. It won't be easy." The 3 generations Tsuchikage reminded the other Kages around him to be careful of the 4 generations Lei Ying. At the same time, he was also reminding the 4 generations of Lei Ying not to be impulsive and not to worry too much. Qilin could master the lightning escape chakra mode, but it didn't mean that other people in the Mist Village could also learn it. The lightning escape chakra mode was very difficult to practice, and it had already limited its spread. Reminded by Inoki, the 4th Mizukage who was still on the field immediately became alert. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, was also secretly concentrating. After all, this was Mai. If anything happened, as the host, Naruto would not be able to stay out of it. And the 4 generations of Kazekage indifferently retreated a little and looked at the situation with cold eyes. After a change of expression, 4 generations Lei Ying sighed and said, "I didn't expect that there would be such a genius in the shinobi world." Since he figured it out by himself, Kumo village naturally won't look for trouble with him. 4 generations later, Ing has made up his mind that after the Chunin exam, he will force Daruto to undergo special death training so that Daruto can master the lightning chakra mode at a speed not inferior to Qilin. Seeing that 4 generations later, Ing dispersed his killing intent, 3 generations Tsuchikage smiled and said, "That's right, Kage. If we don't have this kind of tolerance, wouldn't we be ridiculed by others?" 4 generations laying coldly glanced at 3 generations Tsuchikage and said, "I heard that Xidagarba of Amitsukami has mastered dust release. There are so many geniuses in the shinobi world. We Kage really need some tolerance." As soon as Inoki heard 4 generations laying mention dust release, Inoki's smiling face suddenly became gloomy. The leakage of dust release has always been a worry for him. 4 generations of Kazekage sighed and said, "It is said that Wind Chime of Amitsukami has mastered magnet release. I don't know how they did it." As Homasubi of Amitsukami, Itachi pondered a little and said, "Yes, there are also Uchiha clansmen in Amitsukami who have awakened Manjikyu Sharingan. This is really a headache." In Mai's rest area. No wonder that night his practice method in the practice field was so strange. No wonder he chose to use body technique to fight against Naruto, who had transformed into a tailed beast. It turned out that he was trying to develop the thunder release chakra mode of Kumo. After seeing Kirin covered in a layer of thunder release chakra, many doubts that were hidden in Kakashi's heart were instantly solved. After understanding all this, the doubts in his heart not only did not reduce, but also increased. Purple lightning, mist release, and now thunder release chakra mode of Kumo. Who is this Kirin? How can he do this kind of thing? Is this thunder release chakra mode? It seems so, but it doesn't look like it. To be able to resist Naruto's Rasengan at such a close distance, it is most likely Kumo's thunder release chakra mode, but isn't the thunder release chakra mode a secret of Kumo? Unlike Kakashi, who was surprised and worried, the other Jonin instructors were all talking in a low voice with gloomy faces. Because no one expected that Kirin would use a plausible thunder release chakra mode to block Naruto's almost certain Rasengan. In the field, looking at the figures standing in the smoke and dust, Naruto, who was already injured and had withdrawn from the tailed beast form, was surprised. At this time, Hyojin dispersed the thunder release chakra mode on his body, panting slightly as he walked towards Naruto. That move just now really surprised me. At this time, Hyojin's robe was tattered, and even the sleeves of his arms were missing. His body was also covered with large and small wounds of different depths. Even the special mask that covered his face had a slight crack. But even if Hyojin was in such a sorry state, his calm manner of walking slowly and the powerful momentum around him still created an invincible image in Naruto's heart. Naruto took a step back subconsciously, and a trace of panic flashed across his tired face. Hyojin said indifferently, "Uzumaki Naruto, your performance is very good. Admit defeat, it's not shameful." After being stunned for a moment, Naruto shook his head hard, then took a big step forward, and said as if he was talking to himself, but also as if he was making a declaration. "I clearly promised everyone. How can I lose here? I did what I said, but this is my Uzumaki Naruto's ninja Dao." As he spoke, Naruto gritted his teeth and wanted to enter the tailed beast form again. But at this moment, both his spiritual body and body were extremely tired, so the speed at which he accepted the Nine Tails chakra was a lot slower. Swish! Just as the orange-red Nine Tails chakra gushed out of Naruto's body, Hyojin flashed behind Naruto with a teleportation technique, and then hit the back of Naruto's neck with a sharp knife hand. Bang! With a muffled sound, the already tired and seriously injured Naruto was instantly knocked out. "Ninja Dao, this kid." Looking at Naruto, who had fallen to the ground, Hyojin's face showed a trace of relief. The first update is here. I will continue to ask for monthly votes during the double period. Please support me. Chapter 10:20. With Naruto fainted and fell to the ground. The result of the match was self-evident. After a brief silence, the stands erupted with enthusiastic cheers. The excitement of this match was no less than the match between Hyojin and Sasuke in the morning, so it aroused great enthusiasm of the audience. Because the 4-violet flame array that isolated the battlefield from the stands has already collapsed in the aftermath of the previous battle. So as soon as Naruto fainted and fell to the ground, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Mute, and other my ninjas jumped into the field and surrounded Naruto. After a while, Jiraiya asked Tsunade, who was checking Naruto's physical condition, "Is he okay?" Tsunade said with a serious face, "His injuries are very serious, including his arms and ribs. There are more than a dozen fractures on his body, and his back, legs, and even chest have large areas of bruises and muscle strain. He needs immediate treatment." Kakashi suddenly became nervous. "Isn't this life-threatening?" Tsunade shook her head. "You know Naruto's physique. This kind of injury is indeed life-threatening for ordinary ninjas, but for someone with the physique of the Uzumaki clan, it is not life-threatening." Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief. He also knows that the Uzumaki clan belongs to the kind of people who can survive for a while even if their tailed beasts are removed. They can still release ninjutsu. So he retracted his gaze for Naruto and glanced at Hyojin, who was standing not far away. Compared to the unconscious Naruto, Hyojin's state at this time is actually not much better. In order to break through the limit just now, in order to adapt to the state of the lightning release chakra covering his whole body, he almost squeezed out the power of every cell in this lightning release clone. In addition, the tailed beast Naruto is really very difficult to deal with. So now he has many fractures on his body, large areas of muscle strain, and even tears. Jiraiya, who also noticed this, secretly gave Tsunade a look. Tsunade quickly handed Naruto over to Mute, then quickly walked to Hyojin and said, "Kirin, let me treat you now." For a medical ninja, especially a top ninja like Tsunade, treatment is also a way to spy on information. As long as her chakra enters the injured person's body, she can easily understand the physical condition of the injured person. Hyojin smiled and with his hand, "No." Tsunade was startled for a moment. "But your injury, I can handle this small injury myself. You don't need to worry about it." With that, Hyojin endured the pain and walked to the rest area of the Mist Village, leaving a group of my ninjas looking at each other. With Deadale defeating Druid and Kirin defeating Naruto, the remaining candidates for the Chunin exam were only Deadale, Kirin, and the 3 Mizukes who were previously absent. In other words, the final winner will be between the Rock Ninjas and the Mist Ninjas. Considering that Kirin is seriously injured, the referees decided to let Kirin have a bye in this round, and let Deadale, who is in good condition, fight against Mizuki's, and then the winner between them will compete with Kirin for the final winner of the Chunin exam jointly organized by the 5 great ninja villages. Regarding the arrangement of the referees, neither the Rock nor the Mist have any objection. After all, the fight between Kirin and Naruto was too fierce. Even if Kirin has a bye, in the eyes of many people, it won't have much effect. Because even if the injury can be recovered, the chakra consumed can't be recovered in a short time. Soon, Itachi, as the referee, announced the matchup between Deadale and Mizuki. In the rest area of the Mist Village, Mizuki, who was about to enter the field, smiled and said, "Captain, don't worry. I will try to delay for a while and help you get some rest time." Hyojin looked at Deadale, who has already jumped into the field, and his eyes fell on the 2 bulging ninja bags on Deadale's waist, and said to Mizuki, "My requirements are not high. You just need to consume one of his bags of explosive clay." The nature of explosive clay is very unstable, so it can't be sealed in a storage scroll. When Hyojin uses the Earth Release Clone, Clay Bird, Clay Clone, Clay Centipede, and other products of explosive clay, he has calculated the number of them and brought them with him. Therefore, he knows that Deadale must have stored a lot of materials to concoct explosive clay in the storage scroll. But the amount of explosive clay that has been concocted is limited. After listening to Hyojin's request, Mizuki's face suddenly collapsed. "Captain, Deadale didn't consume a bag of explosive clay to deal with Cloud Village's druid." Hyojin patted Mizuki's shoulder and said, have a little confidence in yourself. Deadail is just a little famous. It's nothing. Mizuki's wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. I'm afraid that I will be killed because of him. At most, he will be crippled. How can he die so easily? Don't forget that your Ghost Lantern clan is the Mist Village's clan that is best at survival. You definitely won't die, Hyojin said with certainty. Mizuki swallowed his saliva and jumped into the field while trembling with fear. After both sides entered the field, the competition officially began. Into my resting area. Looking at Mizuki, who was suppressed by Deadail and could only rely on the water release secret technique to deal with him, Tsunade laughed heartily. On the side, Jiraiya asked suspiciously, Sasuke, Naruto has been eliminated. Why are you still so happy? Tsunade waved her hand in a very heroic manner. It's just a Chunin exam. It's not important to win or lose. What's important is the visible growth. Jiraiya gently nodded and also smiled. Yeah, the performance of Sasuke and Naruto today is indeed worthy of being happy. At this time, Mute, who sent Naruto to my hospital, returned to the resting room and looked at the competition that had already begun in the field and said with a smile, It seems that Deadail will win this match. Tsunade had a proud expression. It's not just this match. Deadail will also win the next one. Mute stared blankly for a moment before immediately reacting. If the Mist Village's Qilin was at its peak, then it would be difficult to say who would win between Qilin and Deadail. But Qilin was seriously injured and was even limping just now, so there was naturally no suspense about the outcome. Seeing Mute react, Tsunade said with a smile, You understand. Mute was overjoyed and even cried tears of joy. After so many years, I can finally win for once. Jiraiya was a bit confused by the master and disciple duo of Tsunade and Mute. What finally win for once? In the Mist Village's resting area. After taking a bite of the fragrant phosphorus, Hyojin moved his body while muttering, Fragrant phosphorus, why do I feel that your healing effect seems to be stronger than before? There are only 2 updates today. Let me take a breather, and I will update tomorrow. During the double time period, I will ask for monthly votes. Also, I would like to thank the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1021. In the previous second exam, Hyojin had received Xiang Lin's treatment. Today, 7 or 8 days later, when he received Xiang Lin's treatment again, he immediately noticed the difference. In detail, the difference was very subtle. If it wasn't for Hyojin, who had the Byakugan and could control all the details of his body, ordinary people might not have noticed it at all. Xiang Lin was a little confused. Did it get stronger? I'm not sure. Hyojin didn't say anything more. He just checked his body. Xiang Lin's healing ability was beyond doubt. Hyojin just took a simple bite, and all the fractures, strains, bruises, and other injuries on his body disappeared at a terrifying speed that could be seen with the naked eye. In just a short moment, his Thunder Escape clone body, which was full of injuries, recovered to its original state. The healing effect has indeed been strengthened. Carefully examining his body, Hyojin ruled out the possibility that it was an illusion, because not only the wounds had recovered, even the fatigue on his body had decreased a little. This was obviously an ability that Xiang Lin didn't have before. Glancing at Xiang Lin, who was a little confused, Hyojin said, Is it because of the Eye of Samsara? The Eye of Samsara was a product of the Yin-Yang escape. It contained the boundless nature power of Yin and Yang. When this power was used to the extreme, it could even distort life and death and completely resurrect the dead. Therefore, the improvement of Xiang Lin's healing ability was most likely related to the Eye of Samsara in her eye sockets. This also meant that the boundless nature power contained in the Eye of Samsara was affecting Xiang Lin's chakra bit by bit. It made her original Yang attribute chakra gradually have a trace of the boundless nature power of Yin and Yang. And this change was undoubtedly a good thing. This meant that with the powerful help of the Type 3 biological armor, Xiang Lin's body, which originally had an extraordinary physique, had begun to gradually accept and even develop the Eye of Samsara in her eye sockets. Rumble, while Hyojin was recovering from his injuries, the sounds of explosions rang out incessantly. The Water Moon, who was proficient in the water transformation technique, was indeed worthy of being the Ghost Lantern clan with the strongest life-saving and infiltration abilities in the Mist Village. Although she was battered and exhausted under Dedale's exploding clay's continuous attacks, she was still doing her best to resist. In fact, if the battlefield was complicated enough, or if there was a large amount of water nearby, the Water Moon would have a lot of room to play. Of course, speaking of which, if he really had no scruples, then he would have more room to display his abilities. After all, whether he wanted to destroy Mai or not was up to him. And because Dedale's air superiority was too obvious in the previous fight against Rui, it caused 4 generations Lei Ying to personally question the referees. Therefore, after the referees' discussion, they temporarily added a new restriction to Dedale. That was, Dedale was not allowed to fly higher than the venue's height. This way, even if the Water Moon was on the ground, many of her ninjutsu could threaten Dedale. At the very least, she wouldn't be like Darui, who was in a completely passive state. In the end, after struggling for more than 10 minutes, the Water Moon, who had already been blown into a pile of mud, took the initiative to surrender. Hyojin, who was in the Mist Village's resting area, chuckled. Then, without waiting for the Water Moon to leave, his figure flashed and directly landed on the stage. At this time, he had already changed into a new mask and clothes. He looked like a completely different person from his previous sorry figure and limping appearance. At this time, the Water Moon came over and embarrassedly said, "Captain, I really did my best." Although she had done her best, the difference in strength was there. Therefore, the Water Moon had only barely consumed about half of Dedale's bag of exploding clay. Hyojin waved his hand and said, "Stand down." The reason why he didn't wait for Itachi, who was the main referee, to announce the lineup and hurriedly rush to the stage was to not give Dedale the opportunity to replenish the exploding clay. In the first battle with Darui, Dedale had consumed about 1/3 of the bag of exploding clay. Because the consumption wasn't much, Dedale didn't rush to replenish it. Moreover, in the battle with the Water Moon, Dedale had consumed about half of the bag of exploding clay. At this time, Hyojin had rushed to enter the stage, so Dedale naturally couldn't leave to replenish the exploding clay. Therefore, of the 2 bags of exploding clay on his waist, only a little more than 1 bag remained. In other words, without using dust release, Dedale's battle endurance had been halved. At this time, the opposite Dedale glanced at Hyojin and indifferently shrugged his shoulders. "Hey, Chilin, you can actually rest for a while. I'm not in a hurry." Hyojin coldly snorted. I've already completely recovered." VIP area. Seeing that Chilin not only changed his outfit, but also took the initiative to enter the stage in advance, the 3 generations of Tsuchikage, who had already determined that Dedale would win, laughed and said, "He's really young and vigorous." Laying of 4 generations of Tsuchikage shook his head and sighed. He was very happy to see Kirin defeat Dedale. After all, Druid's loss to Dedale was too sullen, and Dedale's annoying face made him unhappy. However, he also knew that with Kirin's injuries, it would be difficult for him to recover his chakra in just 10 minutes, let alone restore his chakra. 4 generations of Kazekage said, "Chilin should be holding on." 3 generations of Tsuchikage smiled. Young people always want to save some face. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, was also curious at this time. He really wanted to know how the seriously injured Chilin would deal with Rock Village's Dedale. Mai's rest area. Mute, who was about to suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, looked at Chilin, who seemed to be in a new state, and muttered with some worry, "Hey, how come his injuries seem to have completely recovered?" Tsunade crossed her arms over her chest and said firmly, "What's the use of changing clothes? An injury is an injury. Even if I personally treat him, he may not be able to recover completely in such a short time. So he must be holding on." Jiraiya nodded. Everyone saw the whole process of Chilin's injury, and it couldn't be faked, so he didn't believe that Chilin could fully recover in such a short time. In the field, as the 4 purple flame array rose around him, Dedale spread his hands and said, "Forget it, I'll get rid of you quickly, so that I can get rid of this boring Chunin exam." Before his voice fell, he spat out a large mass of white, explosive clay from his palms. Immediately afterward, the explosive clay on the ground turned into 2 funny clay people that staggered toward Hyjin. The first one is here, asking for monthly votes during the double period. Chapter 1022, Soul Manipulation Technique. Looking at the 2 funny and charmingly naive clay dolls staggering towards him, Hyjin's expression sank slightly. This technique seemed to be playful, but it was actually extremely dangerous. In the original space-time, Dedale used this technique to force Sasuke, who had the Chidori flow that could restrain the Earth-release ninjutsu, to flee in panic and be battered and exhausted. Hyjin had a deep impression of this technique, because his Earth-release clone had mastered almost all of Dedale's explosion-release ninjutsu, including the C0 self-destruct. However, no matter how much he tried, he couldn't grasp this soul manipulation technique. This technique required a strange brain circuit to master, and it could be said to be tailor-made for an artistic madman like Dedale. Soon, with the sound of footsteps, the 2 clay dolls rushed faster and faster, and when they were about to arrive in front of Suijin, the speed of the 2 clay dolls was already approaching the speed of an ordinary jonin. Hyjin's thoughts changed at this time, and he had an idea. Then, he pretended to not understand this technique, and used the Chidori flow to meet it. Whoosh, he used his hand as a blade, and under the buff of the Chidori flow, he instantly cut a clay doll in half. Then, he turned around and kicked the other clay doll, sending it flying. At this time, the clay doll that had been cut in half by Hyjin rolled on the ground, and the 2 have turned into independent clay dolls that pounced toward Hyjin. Not long after, the number of clay puppets that were chopped by Suijin increased. 1 divided into 2, 2 divided into 4 divided into 8, and in just a few blinks of an eye, the entire field was filled with clay puppets. Dedale, who was controlling the clay dolls, laughed and said, "Ha, witness my art." At this time, Hyjin didn't have the time to pay attention to Dedale. The feeling of being besieged by dozens of powerful and abnormally sensitive clay dolls wasn't a good one. The corners of Dedale's mouth rose as he said with a smile, "It's almost over, huh?" Following Dedale's shout, the clay dolls scattered all over the place, jumped up and pounced toward Hyjin, expanding in the air. The expansion of the clay doll undoubtedly meant that it was about to explode. Hyjin's eyes narrowed, and his hands immediately reached into the ninja bag around his waist. While activating the Byakugan, he observed all the clay puppets that were rushing towards him. At the same time, he infused the lightning release chakra into many specially prepared Senbon, and then accurately shot them out one by one. Shio, shio, shio. In an instant, amidst the sound of the air being torn apart, Senbon that contained the lightning escape chakra charged towards the clay puppets that were pouncing towards Hyjin from all directions. All the clay dolls in the air that were pierced by the Senbon were like deflated balloons, and they immediately deflated. The natural law of lightning restraining Earth was vividly displayed. However, not all the clay dolls were intercepted by the Senbon. There were some clay dolls that managed to avoid Hyjin's Senbon's interception by taking advantage of tricky angles, and they pounced towards Hyjin while expanding. Hyjin immediately wanted to dodge when he saw these clay dolls pouncing towards him, but he staggered and wasn't able to stand firm, delaying for a moment, allowing these clay dolls to completely close in on him. Just as these clay dolls were about to explode, a strange smile appeared on Suijin's face, which was hidden under the mask, as he was in a panic. Boom, boom, boom. The continuous explosion immediately resounded throughout the venue. Amidst the smoke and dust that filled the sky, a disheveled Kuroto dashed out and landed to the side. At this time, a large part of his newly changed robe was burned, and the shoes on his feet were blown away. His left leg was even more seriously injured in the VIP area. 4 generations of Kazekage, Lang shook his head and said with a regretful expression, "Kirin's previous injury obviously hasn't recovered yet. His reaction is slow, and his movements are sluggish. Otherwise, with his speed, it would be impossible for him to escape this wave of explosion. 4 generations of Kazekage gently nodded. Well, his ninja tool is also a bit unsatisfactory. I thought that he would only miss the clay dolls in the blind spot, but I didn't expect that he would miss 3. 4 generations of Kazekage frowned and said, he shouldn't have used ninja tools to intercept them. He's not a pupillary Kekai ninja. How can he see through all the attacks in an instant? It's obvious that he can solve the problem with a range of thunder-release ninjutsu, but he made it so complicated. 3 generations of Tsuchikage said, with a playful expression, laying, how much chakra do you think he has left after fighting with Nine-Tails Jinchuriki? 4 generations of Kazekage Lei-ing was suddenly speechless. 4 generations of Kazekage smiled. Not everyone is like you, Mr. Lei-ing, who has a terrifying chakra amount comparable to Jinchuriki. 4 generations of Kazekage Lei-ing sighed. Well, it seems that there is no suspense in this battle. Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, frowned secretly. Kirin's performance in this battle surprised him a little. He thought to himself, is his injury really not healed? Or is it some kind of deception? 4 generations of Kazekage, who did not participate in the conversation at all, looked indifferent and calmly watched the field. Mai's rest area. Bang! Tsunade punched the guardrail heavily and said proudly, I'm right, with his speed, how could he not avoid the explosion just now? Jiraiya said, well, although he tried to hide it, his incoherent movements and slow reactions still exposed the true state of his body. It seems that, as you guessed, his injury has not fully recovered. Tsunade smiled and said, of course, the injury he just suffered, even I can't completely heal it in 10 minutes. Is it possible that there is a ninja in the mist with better medical ninjutsu than me? Seeing that the situation was settled, Mute let out a long sigh of relief. Phew, I can finally rest assured. Tsunade laughed and patted Mute on the shoulder. I told you not to worry. Jiraiya stared suspiciously at Tsunade and Mute and asked, hey, you two are too concerned about the result of this battle, aren't you? Tsunade quickly avoided Jiraiya's gaze. No, nothing. Mute also turned his face to the side guiltily. Seeing this, Jiraiya became even more suspicious and questioned, you didn't go gambling again, did you? This old man has warned you time and time again to forbid you from gambling. Tsunade waved her hand. No. Jiraiya leaned over and stared at Tsunade. Really? Tsunade, who was uncomfortable under Jiraiya's stare, smiled embarrassedly, just a little bit. Jiraiya was shocked. You really want to gamble? And in the village? If the old man knows about this, she'll lower your voice. After a pause, Tsunade said, actually, I didn't bet much, just 15,000 for fun. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. 15,000? Okay, it's 150,000. 150,000? I still can't hide it from you. It's 1.5 million. Jiraiya was shocked. Are you crazy? You bet 1.5 million. Jiraiya was not a rich person, and 1.5 million was already a huge sum of money for him. When he took Naruto out for training in the original space and time, the expenses were all paid by Naruto, causing the bulging frog wallet that Naruto had worked hard to save to deflate in a few days. Tsunade smiled proudly. Don't worry, I bet on dead ale. Mute also said, Lord Jiraiya, don't worry, I deliberately disguise myself when I bet. No one will find out. Jiraiya was speechless. In the resting area of Hidden Fog, Sammy said with flagging interest, Sigh, the outcome has been decided. After carefully sensing for a while, she nodded. Well, the chakra fluctuations on Kirin's body are very weak. It seems that he has consumed too much in the previous battle. Facing a powerhouse like Dead Ale, he should have no chance of winning in his current physical state. Doree did not speak, but stared at the field with a rare, serious face. After noticing Doree's abnormality, Sammy asked, What's wrong? Doree shook his head. Something's wrong. Next to him, she asked, What's wrong? Doree frowned. His injuries shouldn't have not recovered yet, right? She was a little puzzled. His previous injuries are not light, It's normal that he hasn't recovered in just 10 minutes. Duri explained, "You don't know, but that Xiang Lin and his team is a very powerful medical ninja. So powerful that he can recover from injuries in an instant. In the previous fight with me, he relied on Xiang Lin to recover from all his injuries in an instant in front of me. Because this matter was too unbelievable, Duri had not mentioned it to others before, but now seeing Kieran fight with injuries, he immediately smelled a trace of a conspiracy. She and Sammy looked at each other when they heard this, and then, like Darui, they focused on in the field. Looking at Kieran, who had been blown up, Deadale once again put his hands into the ninja bag on his waist and said he couldn't even completely avoid the explosion just now. From the test just now, he confirmed that not only had Kieran's injuries not healed, but there should not be much chakra left in his body, and he didn't seem to be proficient in throwing ninja tools. After getting the feedback of this information, Deadale pulled out his hand from the ninja bag on his waist and opened his palms, revealing 2 hands full of clay spiders. For opponents who can't use large-scale ninjutsu and aren't proficient in throwing ninja tools, a large number of clay spiders is almost impossible to deal with. Deadale finally advised, "Hey, you'd better admit defeat, otherwise you'll really die." Hyojin lightly gasped while glancing at the injury on his foot and coldly said, "Humph, this small injury is nothing. I haven't even warmed up yet." Deadale smiled and threw the clay spiders in his hands. "Is that so? Then you can accompany my clay spiders to play." The clay spiders thrown by Deadale were only the size of a thumb, but they were extremely sensitive. With a light jump, they could jump 4 or 5 meters away. They were completely moving bombs. Upon seeing this, Hyojin dodged while shooting Simban with a lightning release, nailing these thumb-sized clay spiders to the ground one by one. "Huh!" At this time, Deadale lightly shouted with a smile. Apart from the clay spiders nailed to the ground by Hyojin's lightning release, the rest of the clay spiders swarmed towards Hyojin and instantly detonated. Boom, 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 another fierce explosion echoed. When Hyojin rushed out of the smoke, there was a clear wound on his left shoulder. Deadale narrowed his eyes and spat. "He can't do anything once my clay spiders get close. It seems that he doesn't have much chakra left. TCH, I thought that there would be a fierce battle. I didn't expect it to be so boring." Seemingly realizing that there was no chance of winning by passively taking the bombardment, Kuroto, who was panting like a bellows, no longer hesitated and pounced towards Deadale. Seeing Hyojin recklessly pouncing over, Deadale grinned and said, "You are courting death." In an instant, a white clay spider crawled out from the folds of Hyojin's clothes. Many sharp-eyed experts in the venue immediately noticed this and simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. It was clear that Deadale didn't detonate all of the clay spiders during the attack just now. He only detonated a portion and used the smoke as cover to let one clay spider quietly attach itself to Cheelan's body. This was undoubtedly a killing move. It had to be known that a close-range explosion and a close-range explosion were 2 completely different concepts. Moreover, Cheelan wasn't only seriously injured, but he also didn't have much chakra left. He simply couldn't resist such a close-range explosion. In Mai's resting area, Kakashi's gaze suddenly turned cold. He immediately prepared to use the Flying Thunder God to save Cheelan. Although Cheelan had eliminated Sasuke in Naruto, he still felt that he had secretly learned the opponent's purple lightning. It was only right for him to save Cheelan and return the favor. On the stage, Deadale grinned and said, "I hope you can survive." "Huh." Without the slightest hesitation, Deadale detonated the clay spider attached to Hyojin's body. However, just as everyone's hearts were in their throats, the expected explosion didn't happen. On the contrary, Hyojin, who was pouncing towards Deadale, instantly accelerated, and his originally slow figure turned into a bolt of lightning. Swish! Deadale, who had already let down his guard, was caught off guard by this sudden change. The surprise on his face hadn't even disappeared when Hyojin punched him in the face. Boom! A loud explosion echoed as Deadale was sent flying. Another burst of wind-breaking sounds echoed as Hyegen arrived in front of Deadale at a ghost-like speed. He punched Dedale's face and ruthlessly threw him to the ground. Bang! With a muffled sound, Dedale, who had been smashed to the ground, became dizzy. At this time, Hyegen's shoeless foot fiercely stepped on Dedale's face. Then he pulled out the clay spider hidden in the seam of his clothes and played with it in his hand. The second and third chapters have been updated. It will be a new week soon, and the list will be updated. I'm asking for recommendation votes. Also, there are only 2 days left until the monthly votes are doubled. Students who still have monthly votes, don't forget to vote. Finally, I want to thank the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1023. Playing with the small clay spider in his hand, Hyegen said with a ridiculing expression, "I already told you that I've completely recovered. That move just now wasn't even a warm-up. Why didn't you believe me when I was clearly telling the truth?" How could this be? The badly battered Deadale didn't pay attention to Hyegen's words. Instead, he stared at the still, struggling clay spider in Hyegen's hand, his eyes filled with astonishment. He wasn't a greenhorn. Although he wasn't that old, his combat experience was exceptionally rich. He wouldn't underestimate his opponent just because he was injured. The reason why he had relaxed his guard and fell for Hyegen's trick was that he had deliberately hidden the small clay spider in Hyegen's clothes. It had always been under his control, so he was certain that this small clay spider hadn't been destroyed by the opponent's lightning escape chakra. It was also because of this that he felt that victory was within his grasp and relaxed his guard. Seeing Dedale's astonished expression, Hyegen chuckled and said, "What? Is it that surprising?" Dedale didn't care about his sorry state and impatiently asked, "How could this be? What did you do?" Kuroto was indeed very surprised, because he was surprised to find that he could still control the clay spider in Suejin's hand. It can be seen that the clay spider was not destroyed by the lightning release chakra, but when he tried to detonate the clay spider just now, it didn't go off for the first time in history. Looking at the little clay spider that was constantly struggling in his hand, Suejin exerted a little force with his fingers and crushed it with a kacha sound, then said leisurely, "Just because it can move doesn't mean that it hasn't been destroyed." This, Dedale suddenly understood. It turned out that this small clay spider had already been discovered by the opponent and had been secretly tampered with. Hyegen then said, "I spent a lot of energy to make your small clay spider attach itself to my body." For Hyegen, who had to be a Kugin and had absolute control over his body, no foreign object could escape his senses. That was why Dedale's clay spider was able to quietly attach itself to his body, and it was completely intentional. And in order to make the process look more realistic, he also let himself suffer 2 of Dedale's clay explosion attacks. Even his shoes were blown up. As for tampering with Dedale's clay spiders, that was a piece of cake for him. One shouldn't forget that Hyegen's Earth Escape clone had the Explosion Escape bloodline limit. He might not be as good at using explosive clay as Dedale, but he wasn't far off. What was the composition of the explosive clay? What were its characteristics? How to make it explode? How to make it lose its effectiveness? He had already done countless experiments in his laboratory. Even if he didn't use the lightning escape, he still had at least 3 methods to make the small clay spider hidden in his clothes be controlled by Dedale without detonating it. VIP area. The reversal of the situation was completed in an instant. This process was so fast that the 3 generations Inoki in the VIP area didn't even have time to restrain the proud expression on his face. On the side, the 4 generations Lei Ying was also startled. He immediately said with some annoyance, "So that kid was deliberately showing weakness. Even we were deceived by him." The 4 generations of Kazakage looked at the Kamizukage of 4 generations with a complicated expression. If the Qilin from before was said to be a young and energetic young talent, then after this battle, the Qilin who was able to put down his nothingness and choose to win the battle at the lowest cost had become an expert worthy of being treated as an equal in his eyes. And if such a character appeared in a ninja village, it often meant that the ninja village would be in a period of steady rise in the next 10 years, or even decades. Sure enough, Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, didn't feel too surprised. Instead, he felt relieved after the answer was revealed. He knew that since Kirin chose to compete, then he must have some confidence. It's just that he didn't expect Kirin to use this method to defeat Dead Ale. After a moment, the 3 generations of Kazekage opened his mouth and said, "That kid Dead Ale is too frivolous and not calm enough, so I let him participate in the Chunin exam to gain experience. This time, he can learn a lesson, so my painstaking efforts weren't in vain. Speaking of which, Mizukage, I really want to thank you." The 4 generations of Kazekage was expressionless as he said, "You're welcome." He thought that the Mizukage would politely say a few words, and then everyone could have a way out of this embarrassing situation, but he never thought that the Mizukage would actually accept his thanks. Anoki opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say for a while. Ha ha ha. Laying of 4 generations of Kazekage, who had never dealt with a rock village, directly laughed. 4 generations of Kazekage turned his head to the side and struggled to hold back his laughter. Mai of Kazekage, looking at Dedale, who was knocked down by Kirin, Mute was stunned. Dedale lost? Tsunade frowned at this time. His injury was faked? Jiraiya also had a solemn expression as he said with emotion, "I didn't expect to be deceived by him." Soon, Tsunade and Jiraiya looked at each other and realized the seriousness of the problem. This wasn't a trivial matter. If Kirin's injury was faked, then it meant that Kirin really recovered from his injuries in just 10 minutes. This undoubtedly meant that the Kirin's medical ninjutsu had a huge breakthrough. But the village didn't receive any relevant information. On the other side, while Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief, the doubt in his eyes grew. In his eyes, Kirin seemed to be full of mysteries. "I didn't expect the result to be like this. It's really surprising." After a pause, Asma said with some loneliness, "After watching today's matches, I even have some doubts about my identity as a Jonin." Guy said energetically, looking at these young people sweating in the examination room. "How can we, the instructing Jonin, fall behind?" On the field, Hyojin slowly raised his hand, indicating to the referee that he had won the match. And as he raised his hand, the quiet stands suddenly stirred up. Exclamations, astonishment, cheers, discussions, and even curses intertwined and resounded throughout the venue. Swish, at this time, Itachi, as the referee, came to the field and said to Hyojin, "Congratulations, from this moment on, you have officially become a Chunin." First update, there's a little more than a day left for the double monthly ticket event. Students with monthly tickets, don't hide it. Chapter 1024. Chunin, Hyojin, who was originally happy, suddenly felt strange after hearing Itachi's congratulations. However, Itachi wasn't wrong. As the final winner of the Chunin exam jointly organized by the 5 great ninja villages, his Kirin identity had indeed obtained the qualifications to be a Chunin. At this time, the badly battered Dead Ale crawled up from the ground and hatefully said, "Damn, you despicable guy." Despicable? After a pause, Hyojin said, "Hey, we are all ninjas. Can you not say such amateurish words? Or should I interpret it as you praising me?" Dead Ale wasn't someone who would easily admit defeat and promptly asked, "Do you dare to have another match?" "Continuing the match won't change the fact that I just beat you to the ground." After smiling, Suijin kindly reminded Dead Ale, "Hurry up and go to the hospital. The trapezius muscle on your back has been completely cut by me. I'm afraid you won't even be able to lift your arms now, let alone form hand seals. How are you going to compete with me?" Facing such a dangerous opponent like Dead Ale, Hyojin naturally couldn't just simply knock him down. When he succeeded, he used the Thunder Release Chakra to precisely cut the trapezius muscle on Dedale's back, as well as many important meridians connected to chakra. Therefore, Dedale's injuries were far more serious than they looked on the surface. TCH, after lightly spitting, Dedale, whose eyes were full of unwillingness, turned around and left. He knew that Hyojin wasn't bragging. His current body really had difficulty forming hand seals. Looking at Dedale's departing figure, the smile on Hyojin's face gradually disappeared. In this final match with Dedale, he could actually fight normally because his injuries had been healed by Xiang Phosphorus. Moreover, the chakra he consumed could also be replenished through the giant Tenseigan. In other words, he was almost at his peak state when he went on stage. There was no pain or chakra problem. The reason why he didn't choose to fight normally was very simple. It was because Dedale, who had grasped Dust Escape, was too dangerous. If he fought normally, it would be very difficult to assess the risk. Don't mention the referee team's ban on Dedale. It should be known that the referee team also prohibited other candidates from using any ninjutsu that might threaten the audience. But Sasuke still launched Susanoo and Amaterasu, and Naruto also entered the tailed beast transformation, revealing 6 tails. Trusting that his opponent would abide by the rules and entrusting his own safety to his opponent's conscience. This kind of foolishness might happen to others, but it would never happen to Hyojin. From the moment he entered the battlefield, Hyojin had tacitly agreed that Dedale would use dust evasion or even C0 self-detonation as a precondition for the fight. Soon, Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, briefly summarized the Chunin exam in the VIP seats as Naruto, and the first Chunin exam jointly organized by the 5 great ninja villages finally came to an end. In a lively atmosphere, the audience in the stands began to slowly leave. Just as Hyojin was rushing to the casino, Kakashi came to the mist rest area and then saluted Hyojin without saying a word. "You are..." Hyojin was a bit confused. Kakashi said sincerely, "I'm sorry, I learned your purple lightning privately and taught it to Uchiha Sasuke without your permission." Hyojin's expression was a bit subtle. "Since you learned it yourself, then I have nothing to pursue. After all, I also secretly learned your Chidori." In the final analysis, purple lightning was originally developed by Kakashi, and Hyojin was able to master purple lightning thanks to Kakashi's cell organization. Therefore, he was somewhat guilty in the face of Kakashi's apology. After pondering for a moment, Kakashi said with some embarrassment, Actually, I also secretly learned your Kirin, and I also taught this move to Uchiha Sasuke." "Really? Worthy of being Mai's copy ninja?" Hyojin smiled. In the previous battle with Sasuke, when the rain clouds gathered in the sky, he noticed a trace of mockery and pride hidden in Sasuke's expression. At this moment, hearing Kakashi's words, he immediately understood. Kakashi said with some embarrassment, "I'm really sorry." Shui Wei, who was behind Hyojin, muttered softly, "This kind of apology is just lip service. There is no sincerity at all." "Shut up." Hyojin deliberately scolded Shui Wei sternly. But in his heart, he thought, "This kid has a future." Kakashi hurriedly said, "I think you won't care about worldly things like money. So after thinking about it, only this kunai is the most suitable gift. Please accept it." As he spoke, Kakashi held a kunai and handed it to Hyojin. This, looking at the special kunai in Kakashi's hand that was engraved with his flying thunder god jutsu, Hyojin was speechless. Kakashi's sword of fetters, he had a lot of them. At this time, Kakashi explained, "This is a special kunai called Sword of Fetters. It is engraved with my flying thunder god jutsu. You can take it with you. Usually, as long as you seal it, it will not cause any interference to you. Once you are in trouble, you can unseal it, and then I will know immediately. Can it be discounted?" After cursing in his heart, Hyojin still took Kakashi's Sword of Fetters. Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief. Then he thought of something and reminded, "There are many strange people in the Akatsuki organization. You are now famous. It is very likely that they will target you. So please be careful." After he finished speaking, he did not stay any longer. With a whoosh, he disappeared on the spot. Playing with the Sword of Fetters in his hand, even though he knew that Kakashi had good intentions, Hyojin still felt like he suffered a loss, and couldn't help but secretly complain, "This guy Kakashi must have been infected by Yondaime. He just set up a technique like Yondaime. Why did he have to learn the Sword of Patience of Yondaime and create a Sword of Fetters?" Shuizuki asked curiously. Captain, this Sword of Fetters is the location of the space-time ninjutsu that was represented by my Naruto just now. Yeah, Hyojin nodded. Shuizuki said, that Mai is quite sincere. Hyojin sealed the Sword of Fetters with 4-symbol seal and put it into his ninja bag, and then secretly said in his heart, I have several of these things at home. Today, there are only 2 chapters. Let me take a break. Tomorrow I will continue to add more chapters. Please support me with your monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1025. Where am I? Sasuke, who was lying on the hospital bed, slowly opened his eyes and looked a little confused. After a while, his unfocused eyes regained their spirit. So, I am in the hospital at this time. He gradually recalled the scenes before he fainted, and remembered that he suffered a crushing defeat in the first battle after awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan in front of everyone. Damn it! Under the sheet, Sasuke clenched his fists tightly, and his face alternated between blue and white. Just thinking of his crushing defeat in public, he felt ashamed. He couldn't accept the fact that he, who had awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, would lose to a misgenin. At this time, Naruto's voice gradually became clear in the ward. After barely sitting up, Sasuke was surprised to find that the patient lying on the opposite bed turned out to be Naruto, who was wrapped like a mummy. It's just that at this moment, Naruto didn't have the consciousness of a patient at all. He was triumphantly saying to Sakura and Hinata, Kirin is nothing great. Next time I will definitely beat him. Hinata nodded seriously. Well, Naruto, you can definitely do it. Sakura handed an apple to Naruto and said with a smile, You did a good job this time. Although you lost, at least you beat up that Kirin. I heard from Kakashi-sensei that Kirin is not simple. Hey, Naruto smiled and took the apple handed over by Sakura. At this time, Sakura found that Sasuke woke up and quickly leaned over and asked with concern, Sasuke, you finally woke up? How do you feel? Is there any discomfort in your body? Sasuke asked coldly, How long have I been lying down? Naruto, who was wrapped in bandages, also came over. You've been unconscious for 2 days. What? Taken aback, Sasuke said, I was in bed for 2 days. What about the Chunin exam? Sakura said timidly, Sasuke, the Chunin exam is over. Listening to Sakura describing the situation of the Chunin exam after he was in a coma, Sasuke's face was gloomy, and he gritted his teeth and said, So, the final winner is Kirin? Naruto scratched his head. Sorry, I couldn't avenge you. Sasuke curled his lips. I haven't fallen to the point where I need an idiot like you to avenge me. Naruto immediately became irritated. Hey, you bastard, you're looking down on me again. Sakura quickly explained, Sasuke, Naruto really worked hard this time. You know, he beat up that Kirin to vent your anger. Hinata also added, Yes, in order to avenge you, Naruto suffered a serious injury this time. Naruto held the back of his head with his hands and pouted proudly, waiting for Sasuke to thank him. Looking at the injured Naruto, Sasuke opened his mouth, but in the end, he did not say anything. Instead, he turned his head to the side and said coldly, I can handle my own revenge. There's no need for you to interfere at all. Obviously, the explanation of Sakura and Hinata not only did not make him feel relieved, but also made him even more annoyed. Because the better Naruto's performance in the battle against Kirin, the more incompetent Kuroto is, the more Kuroto's incompetence. And he is now an Uchiha who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and the pride of his bloodline and family makes it impossible for him to accept the kindness of his companions. Kacha! At this time, the door of the ward was pushed open, and the 2 brothers, Hayashi and Richa, walked into the ward with Hana, who was just 7 years old. Several people in the ward quickly saluted Hayashi and Richa, and even Sasuke, who was still lying on the hospital bed, nodded. Because of Hyojin, the 5th generation Naruto, the status of the Hyuga clan in the village has skyrocketed, and the status of Hayashi as the head of the Hyuga clan has naturally risen. Ningtsi Gij. At this time, Hana rushed to the corner of the ward. Sasuke was still a little confused about why the head of the Hyuga clan would appear here, and when Hinata opened the curtain, he found that there was another patient in the ward. This patient is none other than Hyuga Ningtsi. Sakura explained to Sasuke. Ningtsi accidentally hurt himself when he was practicing yesterday. After listening to Sakura's explanation, Sasuke learned that Ningtsi's injury was not because of the Chunin exam, but because he went too far in private practice and exceeded the limit of his body, so he hurt himself. However, Ningtsi on the hospital bed behaved very calmly, and it seemed that he didn't care too much about this injury. After visiting Ningtsi, the two brothers Hayashi and Richa did not stay in the ward for a long time and left directly with Hana. But before leaving, both of them looked at Sasuke and Naruto with complex expressions. Although Sasuke and Naruto were both sent to the hospital by the Kirin of the Mist Village. But no one can deny that the performance of Sasuke and Naruto in the Chunin exam has far exceeded the level of Genin, reaching the point where even the Kaga-level powerhouses can't ignore them. In contrast, the Ningtsi and Hinata of this generation of the Hyuga clan are obviously inferior. When the two brothers Hayashi and Richa walked out of the ward, they happened to meet Fuyue and Mikoto, who came to visit Sasuke. Unexpectedly, Hayashi and Fuyue, the old rivals who have been secretly competing with each other for more than 10 years, behaved very friendly at this time and said goodbye to each other after a while. After leaving the hospital, Hizashi-sama looked back and said thoughtfully, "Fugaka seems to be a lot more polite to us. I'm not the only one who feels this way, right?" Hayashi nodded. Well, his attitude is indeed a bit strange. It is reasonable to say that Fuyue lost the position of 5th generation Naruto because of the Hyuga clan, so with his personality, Uchiha shouldn't be so polite to himself. What's more, Sasuke also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, so the number of Manjikyu Uchiha in the Uchiha clan has been restored to 3. Thinking of this, Hayashi let out a long sigh. Alas, Kuroto's generation finally suppressed Uchiha, but when Hinata and Ningtsi's generation comes, I am afraid that our Hyuga clan will be left far behind. Richa also had a helpless look on his face. In his opinion, his son Ningtsi is already very excellent. At the same age, he himself is not necessarily the opponent of Ningtsi, but compared with Uchiha Sasuke, who awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 12 or 13, Ningtsi undoubtedly seems to be a little inferior. Seeing Richa's silence, Hayashi said, "Don't put too much pressure on Ningtsi. With such a dazzling genius like Sasuke in the same period, it can only be said that his luck is not very good." After saying that, Hayashi's gaze fell on the little Hana next to him. "Hana, you are now the future hope of our Hyuga clan." The first update is here. There are only 6 hours left for the monthly ticket double event. Students who still have monthly tickets, please support this event. In addition, I recommend the new book of Blue and White Tenkami. I have gone through 999 Heavenly Tribulations, the new book of 10 Tenkami. The first book of 2D new books, the quality is guaranteed. Chapter 1026. In the Mayambu Base. The high-level members of the 5 great shinobi villages gathered again and held the first Gakage meeting after the Chunin exam. The theme of the meeting was still to discuss how to deal with the threat of the Akatsuki organization to the entire shinobi world, as well as how to rescue the Jinchuriki of the villages that were kidnapped by the Akatsuki organization. On the issue of rescuing the Jinchuriki, the Yondaime Leiying was naturally the most active one. He couldn't help but be active, because when it comes to losses, Cloud Village's Jinchuriki is the most serious one among the 5 great shinobi villages. Although Rock Village also lost 2 Jinchuriki. In terms of strength, the 2 perfect Jinchuriki of Cloud Village can crush the 2 Jinchuriki of Rock Village who have the potential to go berserk at any time. However, there were only a few people who agreed. The Sand Crypsis village didn't care about this matter. In any case, they didn't lose their one-tailed Jinchuriki village, while the Mist Village's ability is limited. The Mist Village is now thinking about how to ensure the safety of the Yondaime Azukichi. As for the My Village, the focus is also on protecting the 2 Jinchuriki of Naruto and Fu. Not to mention the Sand Crypsis, the Mist Village, and the My Village. Even the Rock Village, which has suffered a lot of losses, is not interested in the Yondaime Lei Ying's plan to rescue the Jinchuriki. The Yondaime Inoki is very pragmatic, in his opinion. Before finding a way to restrain the Akatsuki organization's leader Nagato, any radical plan is not advisable. As a result, the Gakage meeting fell into a stalemate and quarrel like the previous few times. Itachi, who was still pretending to be Hyojin, glanced at the high-level shinobi villages who were arguing with each other and sighed faintly. The three shinobi wars have caused the foundation of trust between the 5 great shinobi villages to be very weak. Even in the face of the threat of the Akatsuki organization, the Kage of each village are still unable to completely put down their prejudices. At this time, Kakashi on the side winked at Itachi. Itachi nodded. After getting Itachi's approval, Kakashi stood up and said, "Everyone, Armai has a suggestion. We hope that we can mobilize the elites of each village to temporarily form a rapid response team to carry out high-intensity missions, such as intelligence gathering and tactical surprise attacks." The first to agree was the 4 generations Lei Ying. He said in a low, muffled voice, "We really need such a team." The 4 generations of Kazekage considered more and asked bluntly, "How many people do you want to transfer?" Kakashi, who was already prepared, said calmly, "This rapid response team shouldn't be too big, or else it will be inconvenient to mobilize them. So it's best to limit each village to 3 people." Armai hopes that Kirin of the Mist Village, Deadale of the Rock Village, Druid of the Cloud Village, and Zoro of the Sand Crypsis Village can participate. The purpose of the Chunin exam, jointly organized by the 5 great ninja villages, is to strengthen cooperation with each other and to dig out the talents of the new generation. Now that the Chunin exam has been successfully completed and a large number of outstanding new generation ninjas have emerged from the exam, the idea of gathering these new generation ninjas to form a rapid response team was born in Kakashi's mind. But when they heard that Kakashi wants to invite the new generation of the village to participate in this so-called rapid response team, several Kage immediately hesitated. For example, Deadale, Durui, and the others had almost been selected as the next Kage by their respective villages. Therefore, the Kage present were really worried about letting the future Kage of their villages join this rapid response team with an unpredictable level of danger. Seeing that everyone was a little worried, the 3 generations Naruto got up and said, "Everyone participating in the rapid response team is also a rare experience for the young people. Moreover, Armai will assure everyone that we will definitely formulate an action plan carefully and will not let the ninjas of the villages suffer unnecessary casualties." The 3 generations' brows immediately twisted. "So, the command of this rapid response team is in the hands of your Mai?" Kakashi said with a smile. "Sashikage-sama, at present, only Armai can contact Amatsukami. So for the sake of communication efficiency, this rapid response team is temporarily under the command of Armai, which is the most reasonable choice." The Mizukage, the Kazekage, and Ling nodded one after another. The 3 generations as Kage instinctively wanted to refute, but for a while, he didn't know what to say. By now, everyone believes that Deadale is not the Xidagarba of Amatsukami, because with the experience of the 3 generations as Inoki, if Deadale is really the Xidagarba of Amatsukami, the Rock Village would have long been in contact with Amatsukami. After the end of the meeting, Kakashi and Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, left the Umbu base side by side. On the way, Kakashi said, "Kuroto, accompany me to the hospital." Itachi was puzzled. "What's the matter?" Kakashi explained, "In addition to the 5 great ninja villages, I actually want to pull the Sound Village into the rapid response team." Itachi, who understood Kakashi's intention, gently nodded. "Well, Kimimaro and Haku of the Sound Village are indeed very good ninjas." As if thinking of something, Kakashi smiled and said, "Actually, I have another plan, speaking of which, this plan is the idea that you provided me with." Itachi calmly asked, "What plan? Remember the last time you pretended to be a member of Amatsukami and scared off the Akatsuki?" After a pause, Kakashi said, I think this is a good idea. Itachi was stunned and secretly thought, the person who pretended to be a member of Amitsukami is senpai? Can that still be considered a disguise? Kakashi didn't notice the strange expression that flashed on Itachi's face and said, your idea reminds me that we can set up a fake Amitsukami privately. Once the Akatsuki organization suddenly attacks us, we can use this fake Amitsukami to contain the Akatsuki organization and buy time for the 5 great ninja villages to launch a counterattack. As a member of Amitsukami, Itachi was speechless, but he could only pretend to listen carefully. Kakashi continued, I've analyzed it. Haku of the Sound Village and Suzum of Amitsukami are both ice-release Kekiai Jinkai ninjas, so Haku can perfectly pretend to be Suzum. Even if they fight, they won't be exposed. Kimimaro of the Sound Village can pretend to be Kazuhira of Amitsukami, since they both have the bone vein. Similarly, Deidara can pretend to be Xidagarba, and as for Homusubi, we can let Jishue or Shinichi disguise as him. Your idea is really... As if he couldn't find the right words to describe it, Itachi shook his head and said, but if Amitsukami finds out that we're doing this, I'm afraid the consequences will be severe, right? The smile on Kakashi's face disappeared, and he nodded seriously. Yes, that's why we have to make a deal with Amitsukami first. I'm afraid we'll have to spend a lot of money this time. Itachi shook his head and said, this is not a problem of money at all. The second update is here. There are only 2 hours left for the double event. Those who still have monthly tickets, please support us. Thank you. I'll continue writing. There's still one more chapter today. Chapter 10:27. Patting Itachi on the shoulder, Kakashi said, there's no harm in trying. Maybe they will agree? Itachi still shook his head. No. How can Amitsukami allow a fake Amitsukami to exist? This kind of thing is impossible just thinking about it. In Itachi's view, the reason why Hyojin let Amitsukami make a deal with the village was just to find a legitimate excuse to intervene, and he didn't really care about the money. Therefore, the idea of the village using money to bribe Amitsukami is simply whimsical. Kakashi said, if Amitsukami doesn't agree, then this plan to establish Amitsukami will definitely not be implemented. You can rest assured about this. Itachi nodded lightly. In this way, the two chatted all the way to the My Hospital. On the way, Kakashi asked Itachi some more opinions about the 5 Kage Summit. Itachi thought about it seriously, and then tried to imitate Hyojin's tone and responded one by one. After experiencing the 5 Kage Summit and talking with Kakashi, Itachi couldn't help but think, I finally understand why Kuroto asked me to participate in the 5 Kage Summit in his place. It turns out that he wants me to get in touch with the village affairs earlier. When he thought that Hyojin's arrangement is likely to let him take over the position of Naruto in the future and become the first Naruto in the history of Mai with the surname Uchiha, Itachi was moved. He wasn't greedy for Naruto's power, but he knew very well how important it would be for the village to have a Naruto with the surname Uchiha to integrate with the Uchiha clan. It can be said that as long as the next Naruto is a member of the Uchiha clan, then the resentment of the Uchiha clan will be greatly reduced. At this time, the topic turned to the Sound Village, and Kakashi said, even if our plan to form a false god organization can't be implemented, it is very necessary to win over the Sound Village, especially Haku and Kimimaro. They are very powerful ninjas that are worth winning over. I heard that several other villages have sent people to contact them these days. The strength of those 2 Sonic ninjas is indeed unexpected. On this matter, Itachi agreed with Kakashi's opinion. No matter if it was the information he collected or the information he got from Jishue and Shinichi, who were protecting Sasuke in the Forest of Death, they all showed that Haku and Kimimaro had immeasurable potential. Kakashi said, if they join us, as long as we don't encounter Nagato, our rapid response team won't be afraid of the other members of the Akatsuki. Itachi asked curiously, I heard that there's a problem with Kimimaro's body. It's a very serious blood disease. Even Tsunade, Sama can't cure it. Can he still fight? Regarding the blood disease, although Tsunade Sama can't cure it for the time being, she has found a way to delay the onset of the disease. After a pause, Kakashi continued, and this is an important bargaining chip for us to negotiate with the Sound Ninjas. The Sound Village and Mai were allies, and now Mai has a way to temporarily delay the onset of Kimimara's disease. So, Kakashi believes that this time, the probability of Naruto persuading the Sound Ninjas to join the rapid response team is very high. As they were talking, the two of them arrived at the entrance of my hospital. As if he had thought of something, Kakashi told him before entering the hospital, Kuroto, the ninja of Sound's Kimimaro, has a proud and aloof personality, so it's not easy to get along with him. The other guy named Yugo is also quiet, so if they're disrespectful to you, please be patient. Kakashi, who had run into a wall in front of Kimimaro, knew that among the Sound Ninjas, except for Haku, the other two were eccentric. Itachi nodded and said, I understand. Everything is for the benefit of the village. Kakashi smiled and said, you don't have to worry too much. With Naruto personally coming forward, they will give you some face. Soon, the two of them arrived at Kimimaro's ward. As soon as they entered the ward, Kakashi said in a friendly tone, Kimimaro, how are you feeling today? However, Kimimaro, who was sitting on the bed, didn't ignore Kakashi as usual. Instead, his eyes went past Kakashi and fell on Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin. When he saw the identity of the person who came, Kimimaro's indifferent face suddenly showed some panic. He quickly turned his head to the side, avoiding Itachi's sight. Kakashi looked at Kimimaro, then at Itachi, who was next to him, with a puzzled expression. Itachi was also confused. He didn't understand why Kimimaro had such a strange reaction when he saw him. At this time, the door was pushed open, and Haku and Yugo walked in. Kakashi greeted them. Haku, Yugo, Naruto has come to visit Kimimaro. Looking at Itachi's gaze, Bai subconsciously shrunk his neck and hurriedly bowed respectfully. Sir, on a cliff outside the Mai village. Standing on the edge of the cliff, Obsidian looked at the Mai village in the distance, as well as the Naruto rock. Zetsu suddenly poked his body out of the ground and said, the Chunin exam jointly organized by the 5 great shinobi villages has ended, and my clone didn't find any traces of traps. Obsidian's face under the mask frowned and muttered to himself, is this Chunin exam not a trap laid by Amitsukami? Zetsu said, you will definitely be very interested in what happened in this Chunin exam. Obsidian asked what happened. Do you remember that child named Uchiha Sasuke? Zetsu smiled and said, you would never have thought that the little guy would awaken the man GQ Sharingan in this Chunin exam. What? Obsidian was taken aback. Zetsu smiled and said, I was also surprised when I heard the news. Obsidian was a little skeptical. Is the news true? Sasuke is not even 13 years old this year, right? Zetsu said, the entire Mai village is talking about this matter. It is said that he awakened in front of thousands of spectators during the battle against the Mist Genin, so the news should not be fake. I didn't expect Sasuke to have such aptitude. Obsidian sighed with emotion. If he had known that Sasuke had such potential, he wouldn't have let Sasuke go so easily in the first place. Zetsu then smiled and said, there is one more thing that you probably can't imagine. That is, Sasuke, who awakened the man GQ Sharingan, was defeated by the Mist Genin. Obsidian chuckled and said, don't joke around. How could the Mist Genin be the opponent of man GQ Uchiha? Even if Sasuke had just awakened the man GQ Sharingan, he still has the ability to match the Mizukage. Zetsu shrugged and said, but Sasuke was indeed defeated. I heard that he even used the Susu, but he still almost died in the hands of the opponent. Third, thank you for your support during the double monthly ticket period, and thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1028. Listening to Zetsu's solemn vow, Obsidian thought for a while and whispered, there is such a strong expert in the Mist Village? Impossible. This doesn't make sense at all. As the person who has manipulated the 4 generations Mizukage behind the scenes, Obsidian is very clear about how much power the Mist Village has. It can be said that with the exception of the 4 generations Mizukage and Mei, who grew up under the protection of the Mist Elders, the other experts of the Mist Village have either been killed by him or recruited into the Akatsuki organization. Perhaps there are a few who have defected outside, such as Zabuza, who launched a coup, and Rhea, who defected with one of the 7 swords of the Mist Village. These can barely be regarded as experts. In addition, there are no other experts in the Mist Village, let alone a genin that can defeat Sasuke, who has awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan. At this time, Zetsu said, the other party's name is Kirin. It is said that he is a mist-release Kekai Genkai and has mastered the lightning chakra transformation technique called Purple Lightning. There is even a rumor that this Kirin has also learned the lightning chakra mode passed down from generation to generation of the Cloud Village Laying. Obito's eyebrows twitched. That sounds more like a ninja from the Cloud Village. Zetsu chuckled. That's right. It is said that the Cloud Village's 4 generations Laying is very annoyed by this. Feeling that things are a little out of his control, Obsidian hurriedly said, tell me in detail about the Chunin exam that you have inquired about. Zetsu relayed the information that his clone had inquired to Obsidian one by one. After listening to Zetsu's narration, Obsidian's expression gradually became gloomy. A mere Chunin exam. How can there be so many experts emerging? Zetsu nodded and said, well, not only the 5 great shinobi villages have many talents, but even the candidates from the small shinobi villages, such as the Sound Village, Grass Village, and Takigakure Village, have also performed well. Especially the Sound Village. It is said that there are 2 descendants of the Mist Snow clan and the Kagaya clan who performed very well in the Chunin exam. This is the foundation of the Mist Village. Fortunately, we have defeated it in advance. After a pause, Obsidian's eyes became cold. Did you find the whereabouts of the Mizukage? Ju shook his head. The other party is very cautious. There's even a guy with a white eye following him 24/7. My clones can't get close at all. Obsidian solemnly said, we must lock the Mizukage's whereabouts before Nagato takes action. Before the final battle, Obsidian's task is to locate all the tailed beasts. Among the remaining 4-tailed beasts, the 7 and 9 tails are stationed in Mai, so there is no need to look for them. When Nagato launches the final battle, he can capture them in one fell swoop. The one tail has not been resurrected yet, so the only target that Obsidian needs to lock on is the 4 generations Mizukage. After pondering for a while, Zetsu said, the Mizukage won't stay in Konoha for a long time, giving us a chance to catch him in one fell swoop, so he is likely to leave Konoha in the near future and hide again like before. I have placed a large number of clones on the periphery of Konoha. Once he leaves, I will receive the news immediately. Obsidian nodded and emphasized, this time, we can't make any mistakes. Zetsu nodded and then asked, by the way, that Uchiha Sasuke who awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, how are you going to deal with him? The pupillary technique in one of his eyes seems to be the same as his father's, which is also Black Flame. As for what kind of pupillary technique he awakened in the other eye, there is no news yet. Obsidian pondered when he heard this. A pair of newborn Manjikyu Sharingan is a variable that is neither too big nor too small, especially in the case of not knowing what kind of pupillary technique the other Manjikyu Sharingan has awakened. Therefore, whether to dig out Sasuke's Manjikyu Sharingan, or use Sasuke to threaten Itachi, or try to bewitch Sasuke, Obsidian is still in a dilemma. In addition, considering that Amatsukami has already obtained Fuyue's pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, so Obsidian feels that Amatsukami might also be eyeing Sasuke's Manjikyu Sharingan. After all, the leader of Amatsukami is the Otsutsuki clan with a long history, so it is not impossible for them to know the secret of the Manjikyu Sharingan. My hospital. After leaving Kimamaro's ward, Kakashi asked Itachi, who was disguised as Hyojin, with a puzzled look, Kuroto, have you dealt with Kimamaro and Haku before? With Itachi's observation ability, he can easily see that Kimamaro seems to be very afraid of Hyojin, and Haku also has an inexplicable respect for Hyojin. And this is obviously not because of Hyojin's identity as Naruto. So the only explanation is that Kimimaro and Haku must have dealt with Hyojin in some way before. Senpai knows these two sound ninjas. After confirming this, Itachi didn't dare to say anything and just shook his head vaguely. Kakashi glanced at Itachi with a meaningful look. That's strange. They seem to be afraid of you. Itachi explained. Maybe they are afraid of my identity as Naruto. Kakashi smiled, maybe. In short, this time they didn't directly refuse our proposal, which is a very good result. You know, when I mentioned joining the rapid response team to them yesterday, they refused without even thinking about it. Itachi's explanation is not completely unreasonable. After all, to some extent, Mai's Naruto can be regarded as the highest ninja in the entire shinobi world. It's not strange for a ninja from a small village to see Naruto. And after the initial accident, Kimimaro and Haku quickly adjusted their attitude, so Kakashi didn't dwell on this issue too much. At that moment, the two of them bumped into each other in the corridor of the hospital. Mute waved and said, "Kuroto, Kakashi, Sasuke is awake." Both Kakashi and Itachi's expressions changed, and they immediately walked towards Sasuke's ward. In Sasuke's ward, looking at his father who had lost his eyes, Sasuke, who was sitting on the hospital bed, looked guilty. "Father," before Sasuke finished speaking, Fuya interrupted him with a dignified look. "Don't say anything. I know everything." Mikoto immediately stepped forward and gently hugged Sasuke. "Sasuke, your performance is very good. Your father and I are proud of you." Sasuke shook his head stubbornly. "No. I have shamed our Uchiha clan." Mikoto said softly, "What a silly child. It is the greatest honor for you to be able to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan." Sasuke asked cautiously, "Father, mother, you really don't blame me for losing the competition?" Mikoto smiled and said, "Of course we don't blame you." His mother's encouragement suddenly ignited Sasuke's fighting spirit. "Father, mother, please believe me. I will definitely defeat Kirin and take back everything that belongs to our Uchiha clan." Fuyue smiled and nodded slightly. As for whether to tell the truth to Sasuke, the Uchiha clan sought Hyojin's advice, and Hyojin's advice was to continue to hide it. In all fairness, Sasuke wasn't someone who didn't show his emotions on his face, nor was he someone who could hide his thoughts. You could say that he was naive or stupid. In short, he was a person who was easily influenced by emotions and easily manipulated. In the original time and space, he had been living in a lie, led by the nose since he was a child. First it was Itachi, then it was Orochimaru, and then it was Obsidian. He had almost no ability to analyze calmly and make subjective judgments. Just think about it. The Uchiha clan, as the most powerful clan in Konoha, was annihilated overnight without being invaded by foreign enemies. This kind of strange thing is everywhere, but Uchiha Kuroto didn't doubt the role played by the village at all. He was led by the nose by Itachi the whole time, and all his anger was focused on Itachi. He didn't have his own analysis and judgment at all. Later, when he found out that his teacher Kakashi was also defeated by Itachi, he was immediately bewitched by Orochimaru and chose to betray the village. When Obsidian revealed the truth, he instantly went crazy and muttered that he wanted to kill Danzo and destroy Mai. For this reason, he did not hesitate to break into the Gakage assembly and almost lost his life. After being educated again by Itachi, he changed his mind 180 degrees from destroying Mai to becoming Naruto. It can be said that until he was defeated by Naruto in the final battle of the Valley of the End, all of Sasuke's thoughts and actions were guided by others. Based on Sasuke's character, Hyojin felt that it was better to continue to keep him in the dark than to tell him the truth. Because from the incident of stimulating Sasuke to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan, it can be seen that Sasuke's progress is very rapid when he has a clear goal to pursue. This speed of progress can even be described as terrifying. Therefore, with the external threat of Akatsuki, there is no need to take the initiative to remove this goal, so that Sasuke can loosen the string of tension in his heart. Moreover, through the previous contact with Obsidian, Hyojin judged that Akatsuki will launch a round of attack in the near future. But the fusion of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan takes several months, and now there is no time to fuse the Manjikyu Sharingan for Sasuke before Akatsuki launches an attack. Therefore, even if he tells Sasuke the truth now, he can't immediately fuse the Manjikyu Sharingan. Considering all these factors together, Hyojin's suggestion was made. After Fuyue and Itachi discussed it for a while, they finally chose to accept Hyojin's suggestion. Fuyue feels that Sasuke's strength will improve very quickly in this state of revenge, so it is not a bad thing to prolong this state. After all, strength is the foundation of a ninja. Itachi feels that Sasuke is not mature enough, and telling him the truth about Amatsukami is likely to reveal the secrets of Amatsukami. In short, both father and son feel that Sasuke has just awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and his pupil power is still enough for him to use for a while. Moreover, letting him taste the bitterness of exhausting his pupil power will also make him cherish the Manjikyu Sharingan more, so that he can use his Manjikyu Sharingan in a more cautious and rational way in future battles. Soon, Itachi, disguised as Hyojin, and Kakashi came to Sasuke's ward together. Seeing that Sasuke is recovering well, Itachi and Kakashi both breathed a sigh of relief. But Sasuke calmly asked Kakashi, "Kakashi, Sensei, where is Kirin now? In the inn? Gakage meeting? Is it as fun as counting money?" Looking at Mizukage, who was counting the boxes of banknotes he won from the casino, Hyojin snickered. He has participated in the Gakage meeting several times, but each time it starts with a quarrel and ends with a quarrel. Several shinobi villages with their own thoughts can't put down their prejudices. Such a meeting is difficult to achieve any results, no matter how many times it is held. So he sent Itachi away. At this time, Mizukage, who was counting the money, said happily, "Captain, I didn't expect it to be so easy to make money." "Easy? Every cent of this money is earned through my sweat and tears." Hyojin curled his lips. The casino had just completed the settlement with him. This time, he had won a total of more than 110 million. Just the boxes alone were enough to fill up several boxes. The main reason for this was because he wasn't famous before the exam and wasn't a popular bet. Therefore, compared to popular bets like Deadale and Druid, his odds were much higher. Moreover, he had also used the shark muscle as collateral to place a heavy bet of 50 million, so he had won so much. Mizukage sighed again. "Sigh, if I had known earlier, I would have also bet a little." Ignoring the sighing Mizukage, looking at the boxes of money in the room, Hyojin thought to himself, now that the lightning release chakra mode has been discovered, and the development of this lightning release clone has also come to an end, the next thing that needs to be spent is the yang release clone, as well as the arrangement of the ceremony. The arrangement of the Kekiai fusion ceremony is also very meticulous and expensive. The location of Hiriko's ceremony was on the top of the mountain, and the expenses were borne by the Akatsuki organization. Most of the expenses came from Kakuzu's hard-earned money and Obsidian's embezzled public funds from a mist village. Danzo's ceremony was located inside the volcano, and hundreds of roots were used, almost hollowing out the entire mountainside. The amount of work was huge, and at that time, Danzo was the acting Naruto, so most of the expenses were embezzled from the village's public funds. Hyojin's ceremony was designed to be much more complicated and large than Hiriko and Danzo's, so the cost is likely to be several times more than Hiriko and Danzo's. No one will pay for this, and he doesn't intend to tell anyone, so he can only think of a way himself. Fortunately, with this money in his account, plus the remaining funds from the last transaction with the village, as long as the yang release clone doesn't make too big of a mistake, even if the funds are insufficient, it won't be too much. Rubbing his chin, Hyojin thought to himself, "I will try to completely master the lightning release chakra mode within a week and complete the development of this lightning release clone. After that, I will be able to focus on dealing with the Akatsuki organization." 4 generations laying thought that Hyojin would need a few months to completely master the lightning release chakra mode, but in fact, Hyojin has already mastered the most difficult part. The next step pattern might be a problem for other ninjas, but for Hyojin, who has mastered the Tenseigan chakra mode, it's not a problem at all. 2 chapters in a row. Please give me recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, I would like to thank all the students who tipped me today. Chapter 1029. Hyojin's Home. After completing the settlement with the casino, Hyojin left a shadow clone in the guest house, pretending to be Kirin, while he returned home to listen to Itachi's report. After describing in detail what happened at the Gakage meeting, Itachi said, "Kuroto-san, this is the whole process of the meeting." Hyojin's expression remained the same after listening to Itachi's report. As he expected, the Gakage meeting still didn't produce any results. Although Kakashi's proposal to form a rapid response team at the meeting was recognized by many people, but once it comes to specific issues, such as which ninjas to join, which village has the right to command, and so on, things inevitably enter the stage of wrangling. Itachi was a little puzzled. Kuroto-san, forming a strong rapid response team is obviously beneficial to all 5 villages, so why can't everyone reach an agreement? Hyojin said in a deep voice, because the benefits and risks are not equal. Each of the other 4 Kage is a smart person. Even the rugged appearance of the Yondaime, Lei Ying, has a rough appearance. So they all understand the necessity of forming a rapid response team. They just don't want to send powerful ninjas like Dedale and Druid to join this team. Because of the nature of the rapid response team, it is inevitable that this team will have to fight against the Akatsuki organization without sufficient preparation. So the risk factor is very high, and villages like Rock Village and Cloud Village simply can't afford the death of their successors. But then again, if there is no new generation of strong ninjas like Dedale and Druid to join, the existence of this rapid response team will be meaningless, because ordinary Jonin teams can't deal with the Akatsuki organization. Secondly, the ownership of the command is also a big problem. One must know that such a team composed of many Kage-class ninjas, elite Jonin, and so on is a powerful force that can influence the entire shinobi world, so whoever obtains the command of this team will have the absolute right to speak in the 5 Kage Council. Moreover, Konoha is already the leader of the 5 great shinobi villages. If this rapid response team is also under the command of Konoha, then the other shinobi villages are likely to become Konoha's vassals, which is something that the other shinobi villages, especially Iwamakure and Kyumo, absolutely cannot accept. In short, although the benefits are not small, the risks and hidden dangers are even greater, which is the most fundamental reason why no one can reach consensus. After thinking about it seriously, Itachi sighed, "I'm sorry, I couldn't handle this matter well." Hyojin waved his hand. "Don't mind it too much. This is the Gakage meeting. You have to learn to get used to it." Even Kuroto himself can't join this rapid response team as Kirin. So Kakashi's proposal is not something that can be done in a short period of time. Itachi then reported, "Kuroto-san, according to your suggestion, we didn't reveal the truth to Sasuke. He is very emotional now. He wanted to go to the guest house to fight Kirin several times, but we stopped him. Is that so?" With a light smile, Hyojin said, "It's good to be motivated. You don't have to worry too much. Kirin will leave the village soon." Itachi asked, "About Sasuke, what should we do next?" Hyojin pondered for a moment and said, "Don't deliberately stimulate him anymore. He has now awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Too much stimulation will only make him go to extremes. What you need to do now is to train his skills in using the Manjikyu Sharingan." "Yeah." Itachi nodded seriously. Hyojin smiled and said, "After suffering such a big loss in the hands of Kirin, he should have learned a lot of lessons. Maybe he can help us a lot in the next attack of the Akatsuki." Itachi immediately asked, "Kuroto-san, if the member of the Akatsuki organization who calls himself Madara Uchiha comes to find me again, how should I deal with him? I am worried that Sasuke's awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan will attract his attention." Kuroto put away the smile on his face and said solemnly, "The conditions he proposed could be temporarily agreed to. Only in this way will he reveal their attack plan to you, and we must figure out their plan in advance in order to make corresponding deployments. If possible, Hyojin naturally hopes that he can complete the Kekii fusion ritual and become Kekii net before fighting with Nagato. In that case, it would be in the bag, and there wouldn't be any risk. But from the fact that Obsidian suddenly came to him and asked him to confirm the location of the 9 Tails Jinchuriki and 7 Tails Jinchuriki, it is obvious that the Akatsuki organization is not willing to stay dormant and will take action in the near future. After discussing how to deal with the Akatsuki organization, Itachi said goodbye and left. Not long after Itachi left, there was a knock on the door outside the courtyard. The person who came to visit was none other than Hyojin's disciple, Ningxi. As soon as he entered the room, Ningxi bowed and apologized to Hyojin. "Sensei, I didn't even advance to the 3rd round of the Chunin exam. I have let you down." Hyojin looked at Ningxi seriously and found that although Ningxi had an apologetic look on his face, his expression was no longer self-pitying and helpless, and his whole person seemed to be much calmer. "Sit down." After greeting Ningxi, Hyojin sat down first. After sitting down, Ningxi was silent for a while and said, "Sensei, now I finally understand why you told me not to compare myself with Sasuke and Naruto." Hyojin's mouth twitched. "Have you thought it through?" Ningxi nodded, then shook his head. "Sasuke and Naruto are better than me. This is a fact that I must accept. I will learn to adapt, but I will not change my goal to catch up with them. Even if I can't catch up with them in my lifetime, I will not give up." There is no excitement, no determination. Ningxi's tone is very calm, but gives off an inexplicable sense of determination. Hyojin smiled. "Still not giving up?" Ningxi lowered his head and said calmly, "Father persuaded me at home, saying that I am good enough, and Sasuke and Naruto in the same year are peerless geniuses like the 4 generations. It is just that I am unlucky to be in the same year as them." Kuroto didn't interrupt Niji, but raised the cup and drank the tea leisurely with a smile on his face. Ningxi slowly raised his head at this time. His eyes were clear. "But I feel that it is not unlucky to be in the same year as peerless geniuses like Sasuke and Naruto. But I am lucky. Sensei, it is not that I don't want to give up. I just want to make my life more meaningful." The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 10:30. Somewhat surprised, Hyojin put down the teacup in his hand and glanced at Ningxi with interest. "It seems that I don't need to say those nonsense words to comfort you today." Ningxi saluted. "Sorry for troubling you." Hyojin shook his head. "As your sensei, helping you adjust your mentality is what I should do. By the way, are the injuries on your body better now?" Ningxi moved his arm. "It's much better. As the disciple of Naruto, Ningxi naturally received special care in my hospital, so he only lay down for a day and was discharged from the hospital together with Sasuke and Naruto." Hyojin nodded and then asked, "How is the practice of Hashiman Tonku?" Seeing Hyojin asked about the practice, Ningxi quickly sat up straight. "I'm sorry, at present I can barely open the first gate, open gate. The second gate, rest gate, can't be opened yet." Hyojin frowned. This progress may be normal for ordinary people, but for Ningxi, who has the title of genius and has been practicing taijutsu since childhood, it is undoubtedly a bit slow. After asking Ningxi a few more questions about practice, Hyojin quickly found the crux of the problem. Although Soft Fist and Iron Fist are both taijutsu, because of the difference in style, the ninjas who practice Soft Fist and those who practice Iron Fist have very different views on taijutsu. Soft Fist ninjas, or to be more precise, the Hyuga clan, because of the Byakugan, so they emphasize the accuracy of the moves and the restraint of the mentality. Take the Bagwazang of Soft Fist as an example. Whether it is 64 palms or 128 palms, they are based on the position of the Bagwazang, corresponding to the acupoints of the target's body. Each move is very particular. How to make a move, how to exert force, how to use chakra, there are clear rules. At the same time, in order to ensure the accuracy of the moves, the Hyuga clan must restrain their emotions. This has led to the clansmen of the Hyuga clan being relatively calm in battle, giving people a cold feeling. The Iron Fist school ninjas are completely different. They care more about the excavation of their own potential. What they pursue is faster speed and greater strength. This made the Iron Fist school ninjas very energetic and hot-blooded during battle. The 8 inner hidden gates was undoubtedly the strongest secret skill of the Iron Fist style. Its core meaning was to continuously dig out the potential of the human body. By breaking through the 8 checkpoints that restricted the circulation of chakra in the human body, the ninja could break through their own limits step by step. One was precision and restraint, and one needed to remain calm at all times. One required an indomitable drive, as well as a hot-bloodedness that would not give up no matter how many setbacks. Thus, in terms of style, the soft fist was incompatible with the 8 inner hidden gates. Perhaps this is the reason why Guy didn't instruct Ningxi from the Hyuga clan to practice Hashiman Tanka. Hyojin secretly sighed. The reason why his own practice of Hashiman Tanka was very smooth was that he didn't have the rules and regulations of soft fist in his mind. So with a little practice, he could easily immerse himself in the excitement of practicing Hashiman Tanka. However, Ningxi was influenced by the concept of soft fist since he was a child. He was used to using the precise and restrained style of soft fist to practice Hashiman Tanku, so it was natural that his progress was slow. Seeing Hyojin was silent, Ningxi said, "Akai, Sensei said that I am not suitable for practicing Hashiman Tanku, and I also feel that my practice progress is not as good as Xiaoli." Hyojin said lightly, "Ningxi, if you really want to achieve something in Hashiman Tanku, you must first break free from the shackles of soft fist." This? Ningxi was surprised and suspicious. He looked surprised. "Do you mean that I should give up soft fist and practice iron fist?" Hyojin shook his head. "For me, physical skills are physical skills. There is no distinction between soft fist and iron fist. When encountering an enemy who needs to accurately attack the meridians, we should accurately attack the enemy's meridians. And when encountering an enemy who needs speed and strength to deal with, we should use speed and strength to deal with them. Physical skills should be this simple." Ningxi's brows furrowed as he pondered. Hyojin didn't disturb Ningxi's thinking and drank his tea. After a while, Ningxi asked, "Sensei, if I specialize in soft fist, is it possible to catch up with Sasuke and Naruto?" Hyojin shook his head. The potential of Sasuke and Naruto is not limited to this. This is just the beginning. In the next few years, their progress will be greater and faster, and even I may be left behind by them. Therefore, focusing on soft fist will not be able to catch up with them, and Hashiman Tanku is the most effective way for you to catch up with them at present. Ningxi said, "I understand. I will try to break free from the shackles of soft fist, as you said." Seeing Ningxi make this decision as if he had made a great decision, Hyojin chuckled and said, "Don't think that doing this is a betrayal to the family. Soft fist is just a physical skill. It does not represent the Hyuga clan." Ningxi felt a little better. "Yes, I will remember." At this time, Hyojin took out a scroll from the ninja bag on his waist. This scroll records a secret technique called In Seal, as well as a kind of respiratory technique that I have compiled myself. Take it and practice it. This scroll was specially prepared by Hyojin for Ningxi. Even if Ningxi didn't come today, he would have given it to Ningxi tomorrow, because tomorrow he will leave the village and escort Xianglin back to the Sky Fortress. As for the In Seal, Hyojin originally promised Tsunade that he wouldn't teach it to anyone, but now that he is the Naruto of the village, he has the authority to freely read and practice In Seal. So at this time, there is no problem in teaching his improved In Seal to Ningxi. And the respiratory technique attached to the scroll is naturally the result of him peeping on Z Luo practicing 7 days breath technique. Because of his simplification and improvement, this set of respiratory technique is very different from Z Luo's 7 days breath technique. His set of respiratory technique focuses more on the activation of the heart and lungs, so the effect is far less than Z Luo's 7 days breath technique. But the advantage is that it can be compatible with any kind of taijutsu. Hyojin used this respiratory technique to activate the heart and lungs, and successfully crossed the threshold of lightning release chakra mode. Looking at the happy and excited Ningxi, Hyojin said, "Whether it is Yin seal or respiratory technique, both are top secret, so only you can practice it. No one is allowed to know it." Ningxi's expression became solemn. "Yes." At this time, Hyojin's mouth curved into a smile. "I look forward to your growth." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Thank you to all the students who tipped today. Thank you. Chapter 1031. Whoosh, in the whistling of the wind, three figures shuttled quickly through the forest. They could easily jump more than 10 meters away with just a light tap of their feet. It could be seen that they were powerful ninjas. Boom! Just then, an explosion cut off the trio's path. After the smoke of the explosion gradually dissipated, two figures wearing Akatsuki's red cloud suit appeared in front of the three. These two uninvited guests were Kakuzu of the Akatsuki's undead duo and Fei Dan, who was carrying the bloody crescent scythe. Clang! Fei Dan smashed the bloody crescent scythe on the ground and said, "Mizukage, it's not easy to find you." There is no doubt that the three people intercepted by Kakuzu and Fei Dan were the 4 generations Mizukage, Yagura, and his personal guards, Mei and Qing, who had just left Mai. Because Yagura knew that the Akatsuki would launch an attack on Mai in the near future, Yagura didn't stay in Mai for long, but left Mai to avoid being caught by the Akatsuki. At this time, Qing, who was next to Yagura, said, "No wonder I always felt that someone was spying on us. It turned out to be you." Fei Dan licked his lips. "This time I want to taste the Mizukage's blood." Kakuzu said coldly, "Don't talk nonsense, do it." Fei Dan didn't say anything more. After a strange laugh, he waved the bloody crescent scythe and rushed toward Yagura. At the same time, Kakuzu directly tore off the red cloud suit on his body, and the 4 masks on his back came out at the same time. Rumble. In an instant, a continuous roar resounded in the forest. In the distance, Obsidian crossed his arms in front of his chest, quietly standing on the crown of a big tree, looking at the battlefield. At this time, Zetsu landed beside Obsidian. Everything went well. They intercepted the Mizukage. Obsidian asked, "Finding the Mizukage's whereabouts this time is too easy. I always feel that something is wrong." Seeming to know what Obsidian was worried about, Ju said, "Don't worry. My clones are standing guard in all directions. Once the other party's reinforcements appear, my side will know immediately." Obsidian nodded and looked in the direction of my village. After dealing with 3 tails, we're only left with 9 tails and 7 tails hiding in my. Ju sighed with mixed emotions. "Yeah, we're finally going to succeed." After withdrawing his gaze from my, Obsidian shifted his gaze to the battlefield in the distance. "I'm afraid it will be difficult to end the battle quickly with just Kakuzu and Fei Duan." Ju asked, "Are you going to do it yourself?" Obsidian didn't answer and directly disappeared into the twisting vortex. The Mizukage of 4 generations is a veritable Kage-class expert. Plus, there is a double Kekiai Genkai who can use boiling release and lava release, as well as an elite Jonin with 1 Byakugan. In the face of such a lineup, it is indeed possible for Kakuzu and Fei Duan to win by relying on special tactics. But it is obviously impossible for them to win quickly, and once the battle drags on for too long, some unexpected accidents will inevitably occur. On the battlefield, yay! Fei Duan, who was laughing strangely, used the bloody moon scythe in his hand to sweep the battlefield, forcing Yagura, Mei, and Blue to retreat in panic. The cooperation between Kakuzu and his 4-masked Genkai also became sharper and sharper. Wind and fire compound ninjutsu, as well as water and thunder compound ninjutsu, destroyed everything on the battlefield. For a time, the battlefield was filled with a sea of fire, lightning, and thunder. Looking at Yagura, who was fleeing in a panic, Mei and Aoi gradually frowned. Yagura's resistance was much weaker than he imagined. Suddenly, a twisting vortex appeared behind Yagura without any warning. "Be careful!" Mei and Blue shouted in unison. However, This twisting vortex appeared too suddenly, and before Yagura could react, Obsidian stretched out half of his body from the vortex and grabbed Yagura. Got it. Seeing Yagura's body in his hand began to twist and deform, Obsidian's face under the mask slightly smiled. Voila! But just when Yagura was about to be pulled into the vortex by Obsidian, a sudden change occurred. Yagura's body suddenly shattered and turned into a mass of water that splashed all over Obsidian. Water clone. The masked man was startled. He immediately stopped using Shinwei and stared coldly at Mei and Qing, who were not far away. Mei said coldly, "No one can treat the Mizukage as prey. We, the Mist Village, will definitely pay you back double in the future." After saying that, without waiting for Obsidian to reply, Mei and Blue also exploded into a mass of water. What? So they're all water clones? Fei Dan, who was carrying the Bloody Moon scythe, complained as he walked over, "Hey, this time the information is too unreliable." Kakuzu put away the mask monster and picked up the Red Cloud suit on the ground. "It seems that the other party has been guarding against us." At this time, Zetsu landed on the battlefield and stared at the puddles of water on the ground. His face was a little embarrassed. "I didn't expect it to be a bait. The Mizukage has become more and more cautious." Obsidian's face was gloomy. Since this was a bait, the Mizukage's real body had probably left Mai through other ways. In other words, this operation to intercept the Mizukage would most likely end in failure. Fei Dan asked, "Hey, what should we do now? If we don't catch the Mizukage, it will be hard to explain to the leader." Kakuzu was also a little embarrassed. A few days ago, there was news from Nagato that he has completely mastered the new 6 paths of pain, and even the most troublesome Hachibi's Jinchuriki has been completely subdued, so the final battle will be in the near future. But now, not to mention catching the Mizukage, they can't even lock his whereabouts, so there's no way to explain Nagato. After pondering for a while, Obsidian suddenly asked Zetsu, "You said before that your clone found the Mist team that participated in the Chunin exam is also Mai's team that left today?" Zetsu nodded yes. Obsidian asked coldly, "Where are they now?" Zetsu pointed in the direction of a land of whirlpools and said, "There should be a perception-type ninja in the other team. I originally wanted to let my clone follow them, but it seems that they noticed it, so my clone stopped following them. Now I can only judge that they are probably in that direction." Following the direction of Zetsu's finger, Obsidian looked over and said, "This Kirin should be a direct subordinate of the Mizukage. He may know the whereabouts of Mizukage. I will go and catch him." Zetsu quickly reminded Kuroto, "The perception-type ninja in the other team, named Xiangyu, doesn't need to be used, and the other Demon Lantern Clan member named Shueiwa isn't much of a threat. But that Kirin has defeated Sasuke, who has awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan. So you have to be careful." Obsidian sneered, "Do you think I will be defeated by a Mist Genin like Sasuke?" First update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1032. On the other side, Hyojin, Xianglin, and Shueiwa were also flying in the forest. "Captain, the feeling of being spied on earlier has disappeared." After sensing for a while, Xianglin reported to Hyojin. "Yeah." Hyojin nodded lightly. There's no need to think about it. He knows that the spies all around Mai are most likely the clones that can freely integrate into the Earth. This also proves that the Akatsuki organization will indeed take action in the near future. That's why he was so anxious to send Xianglin away from Mai. After all, Xianglin is his backup. As long as Xianglin is here, even if he is careless, he still has a chance to make a comeback. The reason why he personally escorted Xianglin back to the Sky Fortress is to prevent him from encountering any accidents on the way back. Xianglin's current strength isn't weak, but he's still lacking in combat experience. If he really encountered a member of the Akatsuki and lost the Rinnegan in his eye sockets, it would be a huge loss. In addition, he also needs a suitable place to finally practice the lightning release chakra mode. In my village, the Cloud Village's people are almost always watching him, so it's not convenient to practice the lightning release chakra mode in Mai. At this time, Shueiwa said, Captain, in the future, when you become the village's 5th generation, don't forget to promote me. What 5th generation? Hyojin, who was thinking about something, was startled. Xianglin was also a little puzzled and secretly thought, isn't 5th generation Naruto already? Shueiyue quickly said, of course it's 5th generation Mizukichi. Now, in the village, besides you, who is qualified to take over the position of 4th generation Mizukichi. So the position of 5th generation will be yours sooner or later. Hyojin didn't care and smiled. Young man, you have a good eyesight. I don't have much ambition. I just want to collect the 7 ninjas and revive our missed 7 ninja swordsmen. Hyojin glanced at Shueiyue. From the beginning, he found that Shueiyue was always thinking about the missed 7 ninjutsu. So he said, the beheading sword is in the hands of Pipa Juzo of the Akatsuki organization. The double blade flounder is in the hands of dried persimmon ghost shark of the Akatsuki organization, and the thunder blade fong is in the hands of the black hoe thunder fong who defected. We know the whereabouts of these, but we don't even know the whereabouts of the long blade suture, the blunt blade pocket cut, and the explosive blade flying foam. It's not easy to collect the 7 ninjutsu. Shueiyue snickered. My older brother Ghost Lantern Full Moon has a 7 ninja blade psychic scroll. As long as we find that scroll, those ownerless ninja blades that have gone missing can be easily found. Hyojin asked casually, Ghost Lantern Full Moon, the prodigy of the Mist Village? Isn't he already dead? Shueiyue was a bit distressed. Yes, I don't know why a monster like him died. I rummaged through his belongings, but I didn't find the ninja blade psychic scroll. Hyojin smiled coldly. In the Mist Village, the more talented you are, the faster you die. Shueiyue hurriedly said, Captain, isn't it inappropriate for you to curse yourself like this? At this moment, Xianglin suddenly frowned and stopped. Hyojin and Shueiyue immediately stopped and asked, what's wrong? Xianglin turned around and looked behind him with a puzzled expression. I just clearly sensed a chakra behind me, but it disappeared into thin air in an instant. Hyojin's eyes turned cold as he walked towards Xianglin while activating Byakugan. Xianglin's perception range is very large. Unless the shadow clone is suddenly removed, or a ninjutsu like space-time ninjutsu is used, otherwise, no one can disappear from Xianglin's perception. Even the body flicker technique is very difficult to achieve. After a careful observation, Hyojin did not find anything suspicious in the vision of the Byakugan, so he secretly thought, who is following us? Is it Obsidian, Kakashi, or Nagato? If the other party used space-time ninjutsu to get rid of Xianglin's perception, then in the entire ninja world, only 3 people can do this: Obsidian, Kakashi, and Nagato. Obsidian's Kamui is the most convenient. Once he hides in the Kamui space, all perception and attacks will be ineffective. Kakashi's Flying Thunder God technique and Nagato's Shibarigami Prison can also do this, but the operation is slightly more troublesome than Kamui. It can't be Kakashi. Even if he is worried that our Mist Squad will be attacked before following us, he will definitely say hello to me, Naruto, before following us. It is impossible for him to be so reckless. Nagato is also unlikely. He won't use the Shibarigami Prison level of the Shibarigami Prison to follow a 3-man squad of the Mist Squad. Is it Obsidian? But why is he following us? His current target should be the tailed beast. Even if he is looking for someone, he should be looking for Yagura, because Hyojin did not know the specific plan of Yagura leaving Mai. So he felt that his Mist Squad participating in the Chunin exam should not be targeted by Obsidian. Suddenly, Shuizuki's face sank. Captain, could it be? Hyojin looked over and said, if you have something to say it quickly. Shuizuki looked around vigilantly and whispered, could it be that the news of us winning more than 100 million at the casino was leaked and we are being targeted? Hyojin sneered, it's only 100 million, but halfway through his words, his expression became serious because he thought about the fact that Obsidian had embezzled a lot of the Mist Squad's public funds and Kakuzu had been accepting bounty missions day and night. It was obvious that the Akatsuki organization was also short of funds. If Obsidian really received the news and wanted to kill a few mist shinobi to get 100 million, it was not impossible for him to kill and rob them. Thinking of this, Hyojin instantly became alert. Suddenly, a twisted whirlpool appeared behind Hyojin and Xianglin without warning. Almost at the same time, Obsidian stretched out half of his body from the whirlpool, grabbed Hyojin with one hand and Xianglin with the other, and pulled both of them into the whirlpool. Because the change was too sudden, Shuizuki on the opposite side only had time to exclaim, "Be careful." At the moment when his body felt numb and twisted, Hyojin instinctively activated the thunder release stimulation technique and prepared to use the teleportation technique to immediately get rid of Obsidian's sneak attack. But just when he was about to escape, he saw Xianglin was also pulled into the whirlpool by Obsidian from the corner of his eye, so he did not hesitate and kicked Xianglin, who was being pulled by Obsidian, away. And in such a short moment, the numbness instantly invaded his whole body. Then his vision blurred, and when he came back to his senses, everything in front of him had changed. TSK, I didn't expect the absorption speed of the double divine aura to be so fast. Looking at the dark, cold, and strange space in front of him with only stone platforms of different heights, Hyojin looked calm and lightly spat. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1033. In Obsidian's Kamui space, Hyojin felt an inexplicable sense of loneliness. In front of him, the high ground and the layers of stone platforms seemed to be telling the ups and downs of Obsidian's emotions, and the gloomy sky above his head seemed to represent the cruel reality that he couldn't break free from. Is this kind of ghost place a haven for Obsidian to escape from reality? After a little sigh, Hyojin tried to perceive the outside world while adapting to the numbness in his body. The passive space travel just now caused a great shock to his spirit and body at the same time. Not to mention that he was in a trance. Even his body was in a very strong numbness and tingling pain. It seems that the cells and tissues of his whole body have been damaged to varying degrees. His current physical state is actually the reason why Obsidian is so complacent when he successfully pulls the enemy into the Kamui space. Because the vast majority of ninjas in the shinobi world can't withstand the impact of the passive space travel. Many of the ninjas who were thrown into the Kamui space by Obsidian didn't need to be personally attacked by Obsidian. They fainted because their bodies couldn't bear the burden of the passive space travel, becoming lambs waiting to be slaughtered. On the contrary, there are very few people like Hyojin who can withstand the impact and remain clear-headed. The reason why the heaven delivery technique developed by Kumo Village has become useless is actually the same reason. In fact, Kumo Village has long had its own unique space-time ninjutsu, but after the death of the 3 generations Lei Ying, this heaven delivery technique has completely lost its meaning. Because except for the 3 generations Lei Ying, everyone else who received the heaven delivery technique couldn't withstand the impact of the space travel without exception, causing their bodies to be torn apart in the process of traveling. Therefore, even the 4 generations Lei Ying didn't dare to use the heaven delivery technique. So far, only the 3 generations Lei Ying has successfully received the transmission of the heaven delivery technique. And this is also the reason why ninjas who have mastered the space-time ninjutsu are very rare in the shinobi world, because 99% of people are stuck in physical fitness alone. While adapting to the physical discomfort, Hyojin sensed the outside world. After a moment, he frowned. So it's like this: after a full perception, he found that all the connections between himself and the shinobi world in the Kamui space were cut off. Even the giant Tenseigan that could transmit chakra through space had lost contact. In other words, he who was locked in the Kamui space lost the ability of the giant Tenseigan. And through this, it also proved that the Kamui space of Obsidian is indeed a different space independent of the shinobi world. After carefully observing the surroundings, Hyojin analyzed, the surroundings are endless. Even my Byakugan can't see the end. It seems that the space here is much bigger than I thought. All along, he had a doubt. And that was, did the Obsidian Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique Kamui create a different space, or did it resonate with a different space that already existed? Now, after confirming the size of the Kamui space, he began to lean towards the latter. Because obviously, the Manjikyu Sharingan level of the pupil power obviously can't create such a big space. Even the six-path level can't do such a thing. This different space should have existed for a long time. When Obsidian awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, maybe it was emotional resonance, or maybe it was the entanglement of the pupil power, which made his Manjikyu Sharingan unexpectedly become the key to enter this different space. After a rough analysis of the obsidian space of Kamui, Hyojin immediately thought about a way to escape. Why did Obsidian target me? Is it because of money, or my identity has been exposed, or is it because of Igura? Because he couldn't determine the reason why Obsidian was targeting him, Hyojin really had some difficulty in formulating a targeted strategy for a while, so he thought about it while playing with this sort of fetters that Kakashi gave him in the shinobi world. Looking at Xiang Lin in the distance, who was kicked away by Hyojin and broke free from his Kamui, Obsidian let out a soft sound of surprise. He didn't expect that the Kirin just now could actually help his companion get out of trouble while being restrained by his Kamui. This undoubtedly meant that if the Kirin wanted to escape just now, he could definitely do it. That guy's reaction speed is comparable to 4 generations. Obsidian sighed slightly. At this time, Shuizuki, who was opposite him, complained, "I told you, that guy captain shouldn't have cursed himself, saying that the more talented you are, the faster you die. How about it? Now it's true." Xiang Lin also quickly got up from the ground. Her face was full of horror. Although she has been staying in the Sky Fortress for a long time and doesn't have much experience, but she still recognized the conspicuous Akatsuki red cloud suit that Obito was wearing, coupled with the fact that Suijin disappeared in a flash. She realized the seriousness of the problem at hand. Obsidian looked at Shuizuki and Xiang Lin on the opposite side and chuckled. "In order to ensure that the Mizukage doesn't receive the warning, I can only make you shut up." Seeing that Obsidian wanted to kill them, Shuizuki quickly said to Xiang Lin, "Let's split up and run." In his opinion, the other party is not only a member of the famous Akatsuki, but also one of the most difficult to deal with in the Akatsuki organization. Encountering such a strong enemy, it is imperative to escape separately and strive to report the information. However, Xiang Lin didn't retreat. Instead, she advanced towards Obsidian and said, "Quickly let go of our captain, otherwise, I can only kill you." Obsidian was startled at first, and then couldn't help but laugh. "Can you kill me?" "Xiang Lin, don't be impulsive. Even the captain was hit. We have no chance of winning." Shuizuki was also speechless. In his eyes, Xiang Lin is just a perception-type ninja and a medical ninja. Although her auxiliary ability is very strong, her combat power is very limited. "I don't want to kill anyone." Xiang Lin didn't care about Shuizuki's words at all. Her eyes were locked on Obsidian, and her body exuded an unprecedented killing intent. In her opinion, what shinobi village, what shinobi world, peace, war, all are not important. Only Hyojin is the most important. Now that something happened to Hyojin, for her, this moment is the end of the world. Feeling the killing intent of Xiang Lin, Obsidian said with a playful expression, "Oh, so you are serious. Then I will open my eyes and see how you are going to kill me." As soon as he finished speaking, the masked man activated divine might. In an instant, a twisting vortex appeared out of thin air on Xiang Lin's body, causing her body to twist. At this time, Xiang Lin said coldly, "Shinra Tensei." The first chapter is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1034. Rumble. In an instant, a huge repulsive force erupted from Xiang Lin's body and swept towards Obsidian. Obsidian was completely unprepared, and along with the surrounding trees, mud, stones, and so on, as if they were hit by a storm, were fiercely repelled. In just a blink of an eye, A large area of the forest was instantly razed to the ground, and the original lush green was erased by an eraser. Looking at the mess in front of her, Shuizuki was dumbfounded. I under a Jinjutsu? Xiang Lin didn't pay attention to Shuizuki and directly flashed into the smoke and dust that covered the sky. In the smoke and dust. Cough, cough. Obsidian coughed as he climbed out of the pile of mud. At this moment, he was in a mess, and the eye-catching red cloud clothes of the Akatsuki organization were covered with mud. One must know that when using Kimyui, Kuroto needs to maintain his physical form. Even if he took back the Manjikyu Sharingan that he gave to Kakashi and gathered both Kamui, it only gives him the ability to use Kamui from a distance. But when using Kamui, Kuroto still needs to materialize his physical form. Therefore, when he was using Kamui on Xiang Lin, because he was in a physical state, he took the full brunt of Xiang Lin's angry Shinra Tensei. Compared to the mess on his body, the shock in Obito's heart was even greater. He looked at the mess and dust around him and said fiercely, "Damn it, how can a genin of the Mist Village have this kind of ability?" In his impression, there are only 3 people in the current ninja world who have this ability to use repulsive force without a seal. They're the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Nagato, the leader of the Amatsukami organization, Otsutsuki Samurai, and Kuroto Aoki, who died in the hands of Otsutsuki Samurai. In addition, whether it is the 5 Kage or any other masters, they don't have this ability to use repulsive force without a seal, and now a genin of the mist has this ability, which surprised him. Shinra Tensei, is it the Rinnegan? Recalling the scene just now, Obsidian's face gradually became solemn. Because Hyuga Aoki, who had to be a Kugin, also used a similar ability before. So for a while, Kuroto was unable to determine whether the other party had the Rinnegan or not, but he clearly remembered the words Shinra Tensei that Hyuga Aoki just said. Swish! Right at this moment, a figure dashed out of the dust and pounced towards him. His expression became serious, and he immediately activated Kimi, passing through the enemy's body, easily avoiding the enemy's attack, and turned to observe the mist genin with a solemn face. In the divine might space. While Kuroto was thinking of a way to escape, his eyes suddenly flashed, and he found that on a stone platform about 100 meters away from him, half a body covered with dirt flashed past. Is this a fight? Only half of his body was exposed in the divine might space, and it flashed past, which undoubtedly meant that Obsidian was using Kimui to dodge the enemy's attack. Why did he suddenly move so far away? Did the battlefield outside shift? Who was the one who forced Obito to use his godly might? Mizuko or Kamui? In an instant, countless thoughts surged in Hyojin's mind. However, this did not affect Hyojin's response. While he was thinking about these doubts in his mind, he rushed to the stone platform where half of Obsidian's body had flashed past, and then used multiple shadow clone technique without hesitation. Bang, bang, bang. In a burst of white smoke, Hyojin divided 10 shadow clones at once. After looking at the shadow clones, all the shadow clones spread out with this stone platform as the center. At the same time, all the shadow clones' right hands flashed with dazzling purple lightning. For a time, the sound of Chidori resounded through the entire Kimui space. Including Hyojin's thunder body, a total of 11 Hyojins were waiting, as long as Obsidian's body appeared again. Even if it was only for a short moment, he would immediately offer a generous gift in the shinobi world. Staring at Kimui opposite him, Obsidian opened his mouth and said, "I didn't expect you to have the Rinnegan." Kamui didn't answer Obsidian. She didn't even have much reaction. Obsidian's face sank and immediately thought, no reaction, is it not the Rinnegan? But like Hyuga Aoki, has mastered some other power? The reason why Kimui didn't respond was not because she saw through Obsidian's trick, but because she was listening to the words of Gaara, who was living in the Type 3 biological armor. Gaara said in the spiritual world, "I am responsible for attacking. You are responsible for sensing and launching Shinra Tensei to break the opponent's Kimui." Kamui hurriedly agreed. Okay. In terms of combat experience, Gaara, who was cultivated by the Sand Crypsis as a human pillar, was obviously much better than Kamui. More importantly, Gaara had really killed people and seen blood, so he wouldn't show any mercy in a crisis. Gaara then said calmly, "I will now activate the Type 3 Biological Armor's Overload mode. It can last for about 10 minutes. If it can't be solved within 10 minutes, without waiting for Gaara to finish," Kamui said, "I understand. If even the Overload mode can't be solved, I will immediately overdraw my life to launch the Earth-exploding heavenly star." After a short exchange in the spiritual world, Kamui's body slightly sank, and she said to Obsidian, "You are dead." Obsidian was shocked, because he was surprised to find that although the voice coming from Kamui's mouth was also young, it was obviously different from the girl's voice. It was a boy's voice. Moreover, although the boy's voice was very calm, it contained a monstrous killing intent. Boom! At this moment, the ground under Kamui's feet instantly cracked, and her small body, wrapped in a roar, shot towards Obsidian like a cannonball. So fast, Obsidian was shocked again, almost subconsciously activating Holy Might. The speed and strength displayed by the other party at this moment was even close to the 4 generations Lei Ying who had activated the Lightning Escape Chakra mode, so he had to be careful when dealing with it. Swoosh! In an instant, Kamui and Obsidian passed through him again. At this time, Obsidian, who had avoided Kamui's attack, immediately turned around, and the Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets also focused on Kamui's back. Chi-Chi. However, just as Obsidian was about to activate Holy Might to sneak attack Kamui's back, he heard the sharp cry of thousands of birds. Then he felt a sweetness in his throat, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1035. Herein, Obsidian, who was vomiting blood, almost instantly understood who the enemy who attacked him was and where the attack came from. So he was surprised while quickly deactivating Kamui. How is this possible? He was full of surprise, and it was not without reason. Even Hachibi's Jinchuriki fell into a brief dizziness when he was first pulled into the Kamui space, and it did not interfere with his subsequent confrontation with 4 generations laying. In suppressing the thoughts in his heart, Obsidian quickly looked down and found that his abdomen was pierced, and blood gushed out and splashed on the ground instantly. Damn it! With gritted teeth, Obsidian half knelt on the ground and gasped heavily. After the implantation of the 1st generation cells, his physique has long been far beyond the scope of ordinary people, and the injuries that are enough to kill an ordinary ninja are nothing to him. This is why he dared to use Kakashi's Chidori to break the charm set in his heart by Madara Uchiha, because even if the heart was directly hit, it would not immediately kill him. It is precisely because of such a strong physique that he was more surprised than worried at the moment of injury. But at this moment, he found something wrong. The injury on his abdomen was obviously more serious than he expected, and the area around the wound had completely fallen into a state of paralysis. That damn Kirin used Chidori? But Chidori shouldn't have such a great power. Is it the purple lightning that Zetsu mentioned? On the other side, great! Seeing Obsidian suddenly injured, Xianglin and Gaara immediately cheered up. Xianglin and Gaara have some understanding of Obsidian's community, because Hyojin had introduced the characteristics of all Akatsuki members to them in detail in the Air Fortress. Among them, the introduction to Obsidian was the most detailed. Therefore, when they realized that Obsidian was suddenly injured, both of them immediately realized that it was Hyojin who launched the attack. This also meant that Hyojin did not lose his consciousness, but was cooperating with them in the Shenwei space. We need to create more opportunities for the Lord to attack. After calming down, Gaara hurriedly spoke in his heart. And Xianglin responded. When she saw the hole in Obsidian's abdomen and the blood that spilled all over the ground, she heaved a long sigh of relief and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. As expected of my lord. Swish at this time, Shueiyu also rushed over and landed beside Xianglin. Looking at the messy surroundings and the heavily injured obsidian who was kneeling on the ground, he exclaimed, "Xiangli, did you injure him?" Xiangli shook his head. "It was the captain who injured him." After saying that, Xiangli briefly explained the situation just now. Even the powerful Susanoo, after fighting against this repulsive force for a while, gradually couldn't stand it, and then was blown away with the surrounding vegetation and gravel. At the same time, Obsidian Susanoo shot out the two giant black shuriken, but it passed through the repulsive force and went straight to Xiang Lin and Shuizuki. In the face of such a huge shuriken, Xiang Lin and Shuizuki did not dare to resist it, and quickly jumped to the sides, narrowly avoiding it. Swish, swish! When the two giant black shurikens hit the ground, the expected roar and the flying dust did not happen. On the contrary, the place where the two giant shurikens hit was completely distorted and then disappeared without a trace, leaving only a huge pit about 5 or 6 meters in diameter and 3 or 4 meters deep, and there was not even a trace of smoke in the pit. Hiss! The two people who barely dodged the attack sucked in a breath of cold air. If the two giant shurikens hadn't been slowed down by the repulsive force of Shinra Tensei when they passed through, the two of them might not have been able to avoid it successfully. In a Shinwei space, Hyojin, who was ready to go, suddenly froze and immediately looked up, only to see a large mass of mud smashing down. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1036. Inside the Shinwei Space. Boom! 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 The roar of the explosion and the loud sound of heavy objects landing echoed in the quiet space. On the other hand, Hyojin, who was on the stone platform, was in a mess. He was trying to avoid the surprise that would appear out of nowhere and cursed, "Why are you throwing all kinds of garbage here? Are you crazy?" Through the attack, just now, Hyojin confirmed that Obsidian's Shunwei was indeed magical. With the help of Shunwei, Obsidian was able to move a part of his body into the Shunwei space without causing his body to be split. It was reasonable to say that when a part of the body was moved to another space, the body's functions should be destroyed. However, Obsidian could make his body exist in both the Shinwei space and the shinobi world at the same time. Moreover, his separated body could still maintain normal physiological functions. It was hard to believe if he didn't see it with his own eyes. Is this some kind of superposition? Kuroto couldn't help but suspect that the Kimui space may overlap with the shinobi world to a certain extent, or there may be some kind of intersection between the two, which may explain the strange scene of Obito's body being separated. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be separated at all. Of course, the premise was that he had the help of Shunwei ocular power. Otherwise, it would be like when Kakashi used Shunwei on Deadale in the original Space and Time. Deadale's arm wasn't in the superposition state, but it was directly torn apart by different spaces. Only with the help of Shunwei ocular power can I find the superposition of two spaces in space and time that can't be seen by the naked eye and put myself in a safe superposition state. Splash! Just as Kuroto was secretly analyzing the situation, a large amount of water splashed out of thin air from the oblique side. Not only did the water drench him, there were also countless detonation charms hidden in the water that had been ignited. Rumble! In an instant, a huge explosion engulfed Hyojin. TSK. Hyojin, who rushed out of the smoke of the explosion, spat lightly. This water release ninjutsu hides the detonation talisman, which is obviously the work of Mizukage, who is proficient in water release. Most people don't have the ability to ignite the detonation talisman in the water. Landing on a relatively spacious stone platform, Hyojin continued his analysis. Judging from the size and frequency of the things that entered the Shunwei space, he could easily tell that the obsidian outside must have used Susanoo. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for the obsidian to move such a huge object into the Divine Might space at such a high frequency. Previously, Kuroto used the Chidori to ambush him, which has severely weakened his combat power, and then the battle with Xianglin Shinra Tensei also greatly consumed his Manjikyu Sharingan's power. And now that he was thrown to the ground, even with his extraordinary physique, he still faintly felt that he couldn't bear it. Climbing up from the ground, Gaara looked at the smoke and dust in the distance. Whoosh! At this time, a strong wind blew, not only causing Gaara to stagger 2 steps, but also blowing away the smoke and dust in the distance. As the smoke and dust dissipated, he was surprised to find that there was no trace of Xianglin at all in the depression that was hit by Susu in the distance. Shifting his gaze, he found that not far away, Shuei-Yu, who had turned into a ball of water, was pulling Xianglin, who could not move, and was fleeing. Want to escape? Humph! Do you think you can escape? After a grin, Obsidian's Manjikyu Sharingan and his eye sockets aimed at Mizukage and Xianglin in the distance. Far away, Mizukage, who was fleeing, hurriedly asked Xianglin, "Hey, wasn't she fine just now? Why can't she move all of a sudden? Is she injured?" Originally, they had the upper hand in the situation. Xianglin even suppressed Obsidian for a while, but he didn't expect that the situation of the battle would suddenly take a turn for the worse. Xianglin inexplicably lost her combat power. Xianglin naturally couldn't explain to Mizukage that the advantage just now was all because the Type 3 bioarmor had activated the overload mode. One must know that the current Xianglin can't maintain the Rinnegan in her eye sockets alone because her body hasn't fully developed yet. Only with the assistance of the Type 3 bioarmor can she move normally. Although the overload mode of the Type 3 bioarmor allows Xianglin to obtain an almost inexhaustible supply of chakra in a short period of time, once the overload mode ends, not only will this effect disappear, even the original function of the Type 3 bioarmor will also be lost. In short, once the overload mode ends, it means that this Type 3 bioarmor worth tens of millions has been completely scrapped. At this moment, a twisting whirlpool suddenly appeared on Xianglin, who was being dragged by Mizukage. In just a blink of an eye, Xianglin's body began to twist and deform. What the hell? After cursing, Mizukage, who had activated the water transformation spell, immediately used water to wrap around Xianglin, and then pulled Xianglin out of the twisting whirlpool by a hair's breadth. Whoosh! At this moment, the whirlpool closed, and only a large mass of water was thrown into the holy aura space. Covering his eyes, Obsidian's face darkened. While panting, he cursed, "Damn it, the consumption of ocular power is too much. Even the speed of activating holy aura is affected." If it was Obsidian at his peak condition, Mizukage wouldn't have been able to save Xianglin in time just now. Inside the holy aura space, Hyojin, who had activated the Byakugan to the extreme, found that a large mass of water had suddenly appeared, and with a whoosh sound, he activated the body flicker technique and rushed to the area where the mass of water appeared. This mass of water contains so much chakra. It's not the water created by ordinary water release ninjutsu. It's the water transformation technique of Mizukage. After a pause, Hyojin continued to analyze. The frequency of Holy Aura's activation has suddenly slowed down, which means that the battle outside has stabilized, and one side is obviously at a disadvantage. And at this time, it shouldn't be that the overload mode has ended, right? From the fact that the water transformation technique of Mizukage was directly hit by the Holy Aura and a sudden decrease in the frequency of Holy Aura's activation, Hyojin realized that the battle outside may have already been decided, and the next time the Holy Aura will tear apart Xianglin's body. With this thought in mind, Hyojin no longer hesitated and immediately let out a light shout. In an instant, the lightning chakra wrapped Hyojin's whole body in a visible form, and the hair that Hyojin deliberately combed down also stood up under the action of the electric arc, instantly turning into a broom like Kakashi's. First, I'm asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. In addition, I'm asking for recommendation votes on Monday. It's nothing. Please support me. Chapter 1038. In the shinobi world, Mizuki, who had a large amount of water removed by Obsidian's community, immediately fell into a state of weakness. In the state of water transformation, although Mizuki's body has lost its physical form and has turned into a mass of water that can move freely and pervasively, but Mizuki in this state is not invincible. To a certain extent, the mass of water is Mizuki's body, and it is also the carrier that Mizuki uses to carry his own chakra. In order to save Xianglin just now, it was equivalent to using a part of his body to replace Xianglin, who was hit by Kimui, and because of the haste, he didn't have time to extract the chakra contained in the mass of water. So the moment Kimui removed it is equivalent to losing 1/3 or even more the chakra in his body. And in the previous battle, he has consumed a lot of chakra. So after this blow, not to mention continuing to escape, even maintaining the water transformation is a bit difficult for him. Feeling Obsidian's gaze in the distance again, Mizuki exclaimed, "Oh no!" Xianglin was also shocked and anxious at this time, because she has been wearing the bioarmor for a long time. So when the bioarmor on her body was scrapped, she couldn't adapt to it in a short period of time, and the chakra in her body was in a mess. Not to mention launching the Earth Blow Tensei that she hasn't mastered yet. Even bearing the burden of the Rinnegan was very difficult for her. And Gaara's situation is similar to Xianglin's. After the Type 3 bioarmor was scrapped, the biological cells in the bioarmor instantly necrotized, which made his spirit body in the Type 3 bioarmor lose the nourishment of chakra and quickly weakened. After all, Gaara's soul separation this time was the work of Hyojin Shinobi. Aru himself has not mastered the soul descent technique or spiritualization technique, so the strength of his soul body is no different from that of an ordinary ninja, unlike Hyojin or Hyuga Aoki, who can separate from the body and exist in the shinobi world for a long time. Soon, the Obsidian, who had recovered from the Susanoo, once again focused his attention on Xianglin, and while activating Kimui, he smiled and said, "I didn't expect that 3 genin from the Mist Village would be entangled for so long. It's really embarrassing." As he spoke, the twisted vortex once again attacked Xianglin. Gaara knows that Xianglin doesn't have any combat experience. Most of his time is spent on adapting to the Rinnegan, and this time he's facing a veteran member of the Akatsuki, so he didn't count on Xianglin. Instead, he mustered up all his willpower and used the sand coffin that he's most proficient in. In a split second, sand rose from under Obsidian's feet and wrapped around Obsidian's body. Humph! Obsidian, who was wrapped in sand, snorted disdainfully. After landing, Hyojin picked up the ninja bag that had just been thrown on the ground and tied it back to his waist, then looked at Obsidian coldly in the distance. At this moment, Obsidian was being strangled by Gaara's sand-binding coffin, coupled with the horrifying scene of Hyojin escaping from the Kamui space. He was shocked and immediately disappeared into the twisting vortex, hiding in the Kamui space. Inside the Kamui space, Obito was horrified. He never thought that someone could escape from his godly aura space in this way. To him, this was simply unimaginable. Kirin and that Xianglin, these two guys are definitely not ninjas of the Mist Village. Panting heavily, Obsidian muttered to himself with a tired face, "My pupil powers are almost used up. They're lucky this time, but they won't be so lucky next time." Is that so? At this moment, a voice came from behind Obsidian. The masked man turned around abruptly, but what welcomed him was the Chidori that was covered in purple lightning that pierced his eyes. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1039. This fellow even left a shadow clone here. Looking at the purple electric Chidori that filled his entire field of vision, the pupil of the man GQ Sharingan in Obsidian's eye sockets suddenly shrank, and an absurd thought flashed in his mind. Kacha! Almost at the next moment, the whirlpool mask on Obsidian's face burst with a crisp sound, and the momentum of Chidori that broke the whirlpool mask did not decrease. and instantly pierced Obsidian's cheek. Obsidian's hard skull, under the surprise attack of the purple electric Chidori, was as fragile as a piece of tofu. Boom! With a loud sound, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Immediately afterward, Obsidian fell straight to the ground, fell in his own pool of blood. Hyojin, who succeeded in the sneak attack, breathed lightly while glancing at the body of Obsidian on the ground. There was no trace of joy on his face, because before Chidori hit Obsidian, he had already perceived a strange Sharingan power. There is no doubt that Obsidian has already launched his Izanagi. Sure enough, in the blink of an eye, Obsidian's body on the ground disappeared without a trace. In the hands of the real Uchiha Manjikyu, Izanagi is too unreasonable. Hyojin shook his head, but there was not much disappointment on his face. Danzo's Izanagi not only needs to print, but also has a time limit, but the real Uchiha Madara or Uchiha Obsidian can use Izanagi instantaneously and can even delay the launch and large-scale group resurrection. And Obsidian's nerve reaction and physique are the best in the shinobi world. In the case that he does not trust anyone, almost no one in the shinobi world can kill him before he launches Izanagi. Therefore, the best way to deal with him was either to overwhelm him with strength or to use Izanami and the Tenseigan sword, which could restrain Izanagi. Almost muttering in a low voice, Suijin turned into a puff of white smoke with a bang. There is no doubt that this Hyojin who attacked Obsidian is a shadow clone that Hyojin deliberately left here before he tried to break out of the Kamui space. Kuroto didn't expect this shadow clone to play much of a role. It's just that he's used to keeping a few tricks up his sleeve no matter what he does. After all, the shadow clone can't receive the memories of Kuroto's shadow clone in the shinobi world. Not long after, like an illusion, Baitu's figure materialized and reappeared in Shun Wei's dimension. His face was gloomy, and he looked around vigilantly. After confirming that there was no one else in the Kamui space, he let out a long sigh of relief. It really is a shadow clone. At this time, he did not feel ashamed because he was killed by a sneak attack. On the contrary, his expression was solemn.